I call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code Section 551.074 to discuss personnel or to hear complaints against personnel, and the time is 5:30. The board will now convene into open session, and the time is 6:25. On behalf of the trustees, I'd like to welcome you to this evening's meeting of the Northeast Independent School Board. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. We appreciate your attendance and request your respectful attention. We welcome your comments during the Matters from the Floor section of the agenda. If you signed up to address a specific action agenda item, you will be called at that time. We wish to emphasize that this is a business meeting of the board, and while those in attendance may disagree about issues, it is our expectation that everyone will conduct themselves in a respectful and professional manner. Disruptions to this meeting by anyone will not be tolerated. In the event any person or group disrupts the meeting, a warning will be given to stop any disruptive behavior. Anyone persisting in disruptive behavior will be removed from the meeting. The board may also call a recess in the event of persistent disruption so that individuals who engage in disruptions can be removed. It is our intent to conduct the meeting in an orderly fashion. Finally, I would like to remind you that it is the mission of Northeast to challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. 5, Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. A, Eisenhower Middle School, Mr. Herrera.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. My name is Jason Herrera, and I'm the proud principal of Eisenhower Middle School. Tonight, it is my pleasure to introduce two amazing Ike Generals. Tonight, providing the invocation is 8th grader Rebecca Palm. Joining Rebecca tonight is her mother, Mrs. Adriana Palm. Rebecca and Mrs. Palm, would you please stand and be recognized? One teacher describes Rebecca as a rock star. Rebecca is involved in our UIL academic programs and is a member of our varsity orchestra and choir groups, in addition to performing with groups outside of school. She matches her talents and intelligence with kindness and humility. Rebecca serves as a member of PALS and JHS, the Choir Council, and is an orchestra officer. Rebecca Palm. Leading the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge is 8th grader Tanir Bosky. Tanir is described, joining Tanir tonight is Mrs. Nicole Bosky and Mr. Oktay Bosky. Tanir and Mr. and Mrs. Bosky, would you please stand and be recognized? Tanir is described by an Ike teacher as one who builds community wherever he goes and in difficult situations brings fun and laughter, and he is always smiling. Tanir is involved in many athletic programs at Eisenhower. Tanir is also a member of PALS and NJHS. Outside of school, Tanir has won awards for his fishing skills. It is our pleasure to have Rebecca and Tanir representing Eisenhower Middle School tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. Please stand and join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for the great education we have access to. We pray that you bless all gathered here, our school board members, administrators, our teachers, so that they may help and guide us students to be successful in our futures. We pray to you to protect our schools to be safe and secure, and we ask that you lead all our families so that they continue to support us. We pray for the future of our schools and country. In your name we pray, amen.
Please join me for the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, and indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now for the Texas Pledge. honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Rebecca and Tanir, if you'll come forward, please. We have some certificates for you, and we'd like to take a picture. You don't want to do it? I'm sorry, Dr. Micah has your certificates. Thank you all for being here so much. You are welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to go, because I'm sure that y'all are busy. But thank you again for being here. Appreciate you taking the time. It was great. Item 6, recognition. A, President's remarks on acknowledgement of special calendar events. September 19th is National IT Professionals Day. October 2nd is Custodian Appreciation Day. And October 6th is National Coaches Day. So we want to thank all of them for everything that they do. And if you see them, please show your appreciation to them. I understand it might be somebody's birthday today, but we won't sing to you. Mr. Jarrett. And since I called you out, my birthday's in 2 days, so, but you don't have to sing to me either. Okay, item 7, superintendent comments.
Thank you, Madam President. So just a couple tonight. I wanted you all to know and the community to know that we now have 65 of our campuses in Northeast have earned the Purple Star designation from the Texas Education Agency. For those of you that may not know, this designation goes to schools that excel in meeting the needs of military students and their families. And also to note is that we now have the student-to-student group on every single one of our NEISD campuses. So I anticipate us getting to all 68 schools very soon. Just recently, as you all may know, but maybe you don't, is that for the 4th consecutive year in a row, we have been identified as America's Best Employers by Forbes magazine. We moved up 4 spots in the Texas ranking this year. And then just as a reminder, we're the only San Antonio area school district to be recognized, and just a handful of school districts actually in the state that were recognized. And then the last is our Nimitz Middle School choir teacher, Jennifer Perlstein, was named the Region 20 Secondary Teacher of the Year, and she's gone on to represent Region 20 in Northeast at the state contest. Just as a reminder, she is our reigning Secondary Teacher of the Year. So, thank you.
Item 8, matters from the floor. The trustees welcome comments from public during this time of the meeting. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, although members may request further information or a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time. Oh, what you're saying is we don't have anybody. Okay, I'm sorry. Everybody has signed up for a specific agenda item, and Ms. Huey was trying to tell me that, and I was not listening. So, never mind about that. 9, matters from executive session. A, personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action regarding routine personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments. A, assistant principal of Roosevelt High School. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 2, possible action to submit complaint to SBAC for job abandonment by Chapter 21 contract employees. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Landry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Item 3, possible action regarding next steps in the process for single-member District 2 trustee appointment.
Madam President, I have a motion.
Madam Chair,
I have a
I
motion.
have a comment, or let me see if I can get through this. We're feeling Terry's loss a lot. And as I thought of this situation, one of the things I kept reflecting on was Terry herself. Her ability to spread kindness, and I think more than anything, her smile. I think it's important to honor her memory and put our students and our teachers first. I would like to see this board, this entire board, step up as a model of unity. And therefore, in Terry's memory and in Terry's honor, I would like to move that we continue with the process that we initiated in August and call for a second round of interviews. We interviewed some great people, and I think we need to dig a little deeper into some of the people that we talked to, and bring a voice to the community of Terry's community as soon as possible. So I move that we continue with our process. I think everyone would submit at least 1 or 2 names to our board president that they would like to see in a second round of interviews, maybe no more than 4 people, so that we're not eating up so much time and people's, let's get our community represented
Do I have a
as
second?
quickly as possible.
Do I have a second for that?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Nay.
Madam President, I have a motion to call for a special election in November 2023 for the SMD2 Board of Trustees vacancy to respect the voice of the voters of SMD2.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, so
Motion dies.
motion dies. Both motions.
Did you say aye? Did you say aye, David? I thought I heard an aye. I thought I heard an aye from one of the 3.
For the-
Yes, for opposed.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said aye, but opposed. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, item 10, presentations.
Madam President, before we move on, we're running out of time to make this decision to call a special, which would be next Friday, the 22nd. I think we can't just let this go from here. I would articulate that if we announce tonight special election, we're respecting the voice of the voters, which is what I've said from the beginning. Some people did not want to do an appointment of the second place candidate, which everyone has different opinions, but that would give them 57 days to do it. The normal election cycle starting in the spring, February 16 is the last filing day through May 4th, is a 78-day period, minus spring breaks about 69 days, it's soon a 9-day week. So it's a chance to respect the voice of the SMD2 community, let them spread their message, whatever they want. They'll have an opportunity to explain themselves to the voters, the communities. I'm sure the media will get involved. But we owe it to the community to make sure that whoever wants to goes out and earns the vote, the right and the respect of the voters. And whoever that is, gladly work with. But it is the right thing to do for the community. And we are doing a disservice if we just push this off again, which with a stalemate vote like this, nothing's going to come up again. We'll pass the election deadline, and we're going to run this out into February when we have to appoint somebody, and we're not doing the best. There are multiple good candidates. Any of them that want to go earn the seat have the opportunity to do so. So I believe that we need to reconsider the last motion.
Well, I feel like we all agreed at that August meeting to go through an appointment process. I do not feel like we have finished the appointment process. So I would support bringing back candidates to interview in a second interview. But I do not feel like, you're going from February 16th to May,
4th, yes, ma'am.
and you're taking out
Spring break.
spring break,
Sure.
but I would argue that when you start middle of January, which is when you can file, and you go to May, you don't take out spring break because you're still campaigning during all that.
Okay.
I think that by trying to put in place a campaign, and an election in basically 6 weeks does a disservice to the community as well as to the candidates. So I'm not in favor of rushing. I think what you're doing is you're rushing that process and not giving people an opportunity to really be able to study it.
That's
Because
fair.
I think what we've done is we've told our community we're going through an appointment process, and I think if we now stop that, our community is not expecting that.
That's a reasonable point. The question being is, what if we get down this road and we don't come to some sort of agreement on that, and now we've lost opportunity for a special, and now we continue to leave that seat vacant for months and months and months longer versus putting it back in the hands of the voters who the seat belongs to, with the passing of Miss Williams, unfortunately. But that's where, the 6 of us should not be speaking for 60,000 constituents of SMD2. The voters should have the opportunity to decide, and this is the way to do it. Appreciate the applicants that came in, but I think at this point, we can let those applicants now go out in the community and, share their message so that the voters can decide who they want. It may be a little rushed, but there's no reason that they can't and don't have the opportunity to do it, so that we ensure that there's a clear way ahead. Because if this process continues and we don't come to an agreement, that seat may sit vacant for a long time, which is doing a greater disservice to the voice of that community. I don't know, you were going to say something?
I feel like it's the ultimate arrogance for us to feel that we have the right to appoint somebody to that seat. I feel that that community has the right to vote and elect their own trustee.
And you know what, they can. And if we appoint somebody, this seat is up for election in May.
And
then
that's-
somebody has a long time to be able to prepare for that.
And I feel like the voices in that community need to be heard now, so that they
if we
can make
appoint
that
somebody-
decision.
And if we,
If we go through the appointment process like we've all agreed to on August 21st, then we can have somebody in that seat well before November to represent that community. And they can go out and they can talk to their community, and they can have discussions, and they can get involved as much as they want, as more than they already are now, and they can start being a voice for that community. Like,
That assumes that
Within a couple
we can come to an agreement on somebody, which we may not. Maybe we don't.
Absolutely.
Then we have
but
a
I'm
vacancy.
willing to give it a shot because we have told everybody that that's the process.
That's
we're
what we
gonna go.
promised, and I think that would reflect that we are a board of unity, that we will follow through on what we said, which was do an interview process. And we set the parameters for that, and we had 8 people that stepped up and were some fantastic interviews. There's a couple of them I would love to talk to more in depth, and I think that we would serve our students and our community by giving them a voice as soon as possible instead of waiting till November.
We are a constitutional republic, and it is the right of SMD2 to have their own voices heard. I am not arrogant enough to sit here and think that I know better than those people in SMD2. And frankly, if anybody really wants that position and they want that seat, it's going to be hard enough to fill because Terry was an amazing person. It needs to be the voters that give that voice to this board, not us. We are not entitled to do that under a constitutional republic. We are not. So I don't want to silence those voices. And it's our responsibility to give those voices back.
I understand, but we have the authority to do this.
We may
We're
have
not-
the authority, but that's not the right. Just because you have the authority doesn't
Okay.
mean that you can, go and
I
put
understand.
somebody in a seat.
I understand. Okay, so does,
I move to reconsider the last motion on the table for a special election November 2023, please.
do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Opposed.
Opposed.
Great.
So I would offer that to complete the process that we started, that I move that we bring back 3 candidates, of which we will decide as a group, schedule those interviews in a timely manner, and regardless of the outcome of those 3 interviews, that we finish what we said we would start, and go through that process. So,
Okay, do I have a second?
Okay, discussion on that. So, Mr. Byer, if we don't come to, we do what you propose and we don't come to a majority vote, then what do we do? Because now we have an empty seat. We're just going to drag it out till February? We said we have till February 1st or 2nd to appoint somebody. But what if we can't quite get to there for some reason? What's your plan at that point? Because we have a limited time to call the special, which is next, I think, Friday the 22nd of September.
then we work as a board to make the decisions that we need to make.
So you're not willing to just let the voice of the voters be heard in November?
I am willing to finish the process that we've said we were going to start or finish, and as those decisions need to be made, we'll make those decisions.
So let me get this straight. You are telling SMD2 that their voices do not count.
That's not what I've said at all.
That's exactly what you said. Because
you
you're
wanna
not
put words in my
willing
mouth,
to,
that's fine.
you're not allowing the
I think we
voters a
had 8
voice.
fantastic candidates that we need to bring back and get more in-depth discussion with. And I think those candidates will have the opportunity to represent their district. And I think that what we decide as a team of 6 now, that that person, whoever it may be, ends up being the person that, you know, if they decide to run later, they're welcome to run later, but they would have a voice sooner rather than later.
So as, in effect, you're just silencing everybody in that district and saying that we, as a board, are arrogant enough to assume that we know what's best for them.
I don't believe I've silenced anybody. Everybody is welcome to reach out to the board. We can work as a collective group to help make sure that in the event that we can't find somebody and come to an agreement that there's an appointment, that we work as a group to make sure that community is represented while people are figuring out if they want to run, when they want to run, and have the ample time as a community to vet those candidates, and also ample time as a candidate to get their message out and make sure they are present in that community and what they feel they can do as a school board member.
I would offer that by appointing anybody that is not from the voters, that gives them, it turns political and gives them the incumbent name advantage versus here. Everybody's on even playing field. They go out, if they want to run, they have about 10 days to decide. And then from there, they can get their message out. It is a compressed time frame, but they can still do it. We need to give credit to the voters of SMD2. They're smart people. They will find out. I'm sure the media will get involved. The community, I'm sure lots of people will do it. And there's enough opportunity for them to get out there in the community to decide and not turn it into anything other than that the voice of SMD2 voters are heard versus this is what I would offer. Anything else other than that, we're going to have a drawn-out process. It's going to continue to be in limbo, and it's a great concern to me with that. So all those candidates that came in, they each had different things to say. Great. They can go out and now do it publicly and let the voters decide who the seat belongs to.
And I guess what since August 21st has changed to where you now do not want to complete the appointment process?
I was, from the beginning, I wanted to appoint second place candidate or do the election. I was trying to work within the group to do this. I think that we had our chance with the interviews and the applicants. In my opinion, it's pretty clear to me where we stand. So I'm willing to either, no one wants to do the appointment right now, so that's fine. I do think the best thing at this course is to let the community decide. So I have no problem standing by that. That's what I said earlier. I want to do an appointment.
I would have no problem making an appointment now. I am
Okay.
eager to let the community have a voice sooner rather than later. I think the voters of that community deserve a voice sitting here now.
Okay?
So I would
then
have
let
no
us- let
problem.
us-
I would
Make
like
a
us to
motion for that.
continue with the
Okay,
process
then
and
I
finish
make
it
a
up.
motion for Jacqueline then, to put her in that seat because she
I think
lost
we have a
within our
motion on the
70
table already.
That's fine. You can vote on that motion, then you can make your motion.
It's just, I think we're gonna go round and around and around and around. I'm determined that those voters in SMD two are going to have a voice and a say. We will work with whoever they, decide. It's their seat. It's not our seat.
And I guess what is confusing to me is we had a vote in August, and it was unanimous to go through the appointment process. And we, in my opinion, we have not finished the appointment process because I think that we, in my opinion, should bring back multiple candidates in order to vet them.
Mrs. Gronade, so, and if we don't get to that vetting point, then where are we after next Friday? When-
It's truly, it is my hope that the six of us could interview again several candidates and agree on somebody. It really is my hope that we can do that. And I understand, Ms. Villarreal, that you don't want to do that. So, I don't know what's going to happen after bringing back three candidates and I don't know what's going to happen. I think y'all have your mind pretty made up as to what's going to happen. So,
I have my mind made up that I want SMD two
I
for
understand.
their voices. They don't care about my voice. I want their voices to be heard.
Okay, so there is a motion on the table that Mr. Byer made to continue the appointment process. Is that what, or who had made that motion?
That's mine.
Mr. Arnett, I seconded.
Okay, and we've had discussion. So, all those in favor
Can
of
I,
that?
can I, can I
yes.
clarify that I
Yes,
would
please.
like to bring back 3 candidates of how, we need to decide what those 3 are, but limit it to 3.
Okay, so you want to bring back 3 candidates for a second interview? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay.
Want to make your motion from Ms. Klein? Ms. Judy said you.
I move to bring Ms. Klein in and put her in that seat.
Appoint her.
Appoint her into that seat, and, frankly, let the voters decide in May, if they would like her to continue. I feel that is the best, and that at least represents what the voters wanted. So I move,
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those,
So, we have discussion on this?
sure.
So, you're okay with the appointment process as long as it's the candidate that you want in there? You've already made up your mind?
no, I'm
candidate
okay with the
who came in
appointment
second.
process because at least she ran and the voters, she only lost by 75 votes. She actually would have taken that seat had that election not been split. So I'm more, the other people in that particular, group did not do anything to earn that seat.
Well, there was another person that ran in that
Well, Rhonda
election.
Rowland didn't come close to the numbers that Ms. Klein brought in.
Then how do
And so
you know
I'm
that
trying
Ms.
to, no, they were not even
No,
close.
well, how do you know that she would have won the election with the split?
It was a split, it was a mess, but what I'm saying is she was the closest
This-
to giving that SMD2 the voice that they deserve. And I'm okay with that because at least they voted for her. Whereas if we just bring in people and just hand them that particular position on a silver platter, first of all, they're not going to respect the position, number one. Yeah, I understand.
How
You
do
were,
you
you were
know-
appointed, I get it. All right, that's great.
And then I went through an
But
election.
when you earn.
I earned the- I
Okay,
earned the
that's
respect of
great.
my
That's
cluster.
good. That's good.
Right.
I'm glad you did. And it,
So you don't
actually,
know
that
that they're not-
that position means more to you because you won that position, right? You went out, you earned it.
I don't think it's fair to say that they wouldn't respect the position if they were appointed to it. I think that's completely unfair to the 8 candidates that we interviewed.
I think it's unfair to SMD2 if we do not give them their voice. And the closest thing to giving them their voice is Ms. Klein. If you guys are insistent upon this appointment process, none of the others, she's the only one that shows up to meetings.
Which meetings?
Yes, and she even admitted it. I mean, the other ones even admitted it. She comes regularly to the meetings. She understands the issues
she
we're
here tonight?
facing.
What do you consider regular? Anyway, move on.
Would it be important to you
Here's
that
the point.
62% of the voters in SMD2 did not support Ms. Klein?
I would offer the counter to that. Ms. Huey is 60% or 62%. Though Ms. Klein and Ms. Rowland had a similar message, which was different than Terry's, and that's fine, everyone can message it, but over 60% wanted a different message represented on the board. So
But
overwhelming,
no,
their
I'm
messages.
talking about just Ms. Klein.
I understand, but she was extremely close, in that you can, the point you're making, but we're talking in totality of the vote. It was over 60% wanted that similar voice, and Ms. Klein clearly was much ahead and extremely close to Mrs. Williams in the vote
Okay,
total.
so we
So
have.
if we want to make an appointment, like Ms. Hughes said she'd like to do immediately, we got the motion on the table.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
All right, that motion is denied. Item 10, presentations. A, Balanced District Scorecard Update Priority 2. Mr. Jimenez.
President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Shyla Wooden, Executive Director for Human Resources, will lead this presentation.
Good evening. I'm happy to come this evening to present to you your third update for the Balanced District Scorecard. The one that we are presenting this evening is Priority 2 Staff, which states we value our employees and invest in their growth. There are 3 objectives for this priority, and so we'll go through each of those and present to you some information about what we're working on and what we've implemented over the past several months. So for Objective 2.1, it states our district will provide a competitive salary and benefits package to recruit and retain employees. Our 2.1A key action is our commitment to develop and sustain a 5-year compensation and benefits plan based on a comprehensive market study with final target of top quartile in our peer comparison group. So we just want to remind you that during the budget study sessions, we came to you with a compensation plan and discussed how we were targeting different employee groups. Our district has over 1,000 jobs in the district, but we recognize that with looking at critical needs, where we have shortages, and also where we have the highest number of employees, we wanted to really target our efforts in that compensation plan and also look at the data that we presented that showed where our employees tend to leave to when they leave NEISD. So that's really how we initiated our compensation plan and looked at these particular areas to include some that we noted in our presentation for these positions shown here today in this chart. So at the time when we presented our compensation plan, we showed you where we ranked currently when we talked about the entry or base pay for these employee categories. And then we wanted to come back to you because at that time we adopted our budget early and other districts had not yet gone through that process. But what you can see here is in some cases for those jobs that we present, we either remained at the level that we were compared to those groups, or we've moved up. So we're happy to see that through our efforts, other districts had to really, also make some ground to come up to close to where we were, or for us to maintain that placement. So we wanted to give you this information, again, just to highlight that we recognize as we talk about a compensation plan, it's not just the base pay. When we look at this, there are other districts that, also contribute to Social Security, or their benefits plans may be more expensive. So we want to look at the whole compensation package that we present to you this evening. Before I get into the benefits, though, I just want to talk about the 5-year plan and really what our whole practice is when we're evaluating a compensation plan. So some of the key things that we look at are our internal compensation data, not only what we recruit as far as the entry rate, but really the placement of our employees in those pay ranges. To include compression, we discussed that during the budget study sessions, when we have salaries when they're frozen, we end up having compression. So those efforts that we implemented this year were really to help, again, focus on our areas where we had the most employees, where we really felt our efforts would be a great return. Also, we like to align our planning with our goals, so the Balanced District Scorecard has really helped support that initiative to help us target these areas. And then we like to manage the compensation budget, work very closely with the budget department on this, and monitor. We have to look at, over the next several years, how are these efforts revealing retention and recruitment efforts. So it's just that stage initially that we've gotten through. So again, to speak to the benefits plan. So we want a whole comprehensive and competitive plan when we talk about this effort. So we wanted to just bring back to you a chart that was presented during the budget planning time that showed for an average teacher, we look at their compensation, how we also compare to the peer districts. So to highlight here, again, it's not just the base pay that we realize is important to our employees, but the benefits that they also participate in within the district. So you'll see for the two different health insurance plans that are shown here, for the average teacher pay that we have for our employees compared to other districts, our employees in the vast majority of these illustrations have a higher net pay that they walk home and they're able to bring home rather than what we know they're contributing to other districts' insurance plans that mean they may not be able to actually earn as much take-home pay. 2.1B, our second key action, was to develop and implement a recruitment, retention, and support strategy plan to target the most critical areas of need. Again, this really comes back to those areas we previously highlighted where we see turnover and vacancies that we've continued to see a trend in throughout the last several years. So we wanted to show you a list of, again, things that we're in process of developing or have developed, but I'm going to speak to just a few in each of these categories to really highlight what we've done or what we're working on. So under recruitment, I'm going to just speak to the first few bullets. When we talk about redesigning our job opportunities page, we really see how many people navigate to our web page. And over the last several years, we had a whole redesign and a branding campaign that we initiated, and we've been monitoring that. We realized having a website alone, but not looking at the data to include candidate numbers, website analytics, and also even our social media efforts. Those are things we need to continually evaluate to see, even when people are clicking on a web page, where are they going to click? What does the heat map show as far as, where they end up landing and what information seems most appealing to them? Or is it taking too many clicks to get to a page? So that is something that we're in progress of redesigning with some minor changes based on that kind of, evaluation of those trends and data. The second bullet is text to apply. So this is something that we're implementing with a third party that would allow us to implement a text to apply feature where a candidate could simply text a keyword, jobs, bus, teach, to any ISD, and it would then present to them via their phone a message. So it could be as simple as a link to the actual position that they've used as a keyword, or we can then, go further and initiate targeted messages or links to videos or highlight a benefits package. So really drilling into, based on their response, what kind of things we want to present to a candidate. Again, thinking about the individual, more specifically, what is it that they're looking for in an employer. The third bullet is our relocation bonus for SPED and bilingual teachers. This year, we looked at using ESSER funds to target these two particular areas of need. And so we were able to offer and advertise a relocation bonus for anyone coming to us with outside of 50 miles of the district. So those ranged from $3,000 to $8,000 for these particular areas. Again, only SPED and bilingual. We're pleased to announce that when we implemented that, we were able to hire 13 teachers. We had 8 SPED and 5 bilingual. And, we see that those efforts, if we continue, we might, again, continue to be able to recruit additional teachers. So we are extending that now through November 1st. So we'll monitor that, see if, again, with the dollars we have allotted, that we can extend that further. And we are also then pushing out targeted ads through Facebook, in particular, and Instagram, to see really how we can reach those individuals through zip code and other ways to attract people from a greater distance. And so, again, we've seen those efforts, and we'll continue to monitor that. The next is our district alternative certification program. This is something that we are exploring. We have the ability as a district to create and get approval from TA to implement our own educational preparation program that would allow candidates that we can evaluate and determine eligibility to be a part of a program that would allow them to earn alternative certification that we would help to support and train and focus on areas of our greatest need. So it's a process that we would have to first pursue by attending a workshop through TA. They give you resources and guidance and the application steps to pursue that, and then we would determine if that's something we feel is feasible for our district, but also it could be a way to alleviate some of that financial burden. Some programs start off at $5,000 or more for a candidate that's wanting to pursue alternative certification. So we realize that could be a barrier. So we're really looking at what are the things that are preventing someone from pursuing a teaching certification. And so we think this is one great way, and I'll highlight a little bit more about internal interest in a few slides where we think this would be a great effort to initiate and see results of internal candidates within our district. The next is our clinical teacher residency program. We applied for a grant through T-Class, and that's something we've, I think, briefly spoken to you about, where we were able to onboard up to 15 individuals that are going through their student teaching. Right now, we're partnering with UTSA, and those individuals are in the area of bilingual. So we have 15 of those individuals on board with us today at 4 campuses, with the earliest group of 8 graduating in December. So that program, we even extended our efforts further by getting them interested in our district and presenting to them this opportunity during their field experience, which is the semester before they begin their clinical teaching. So it's a really great opportunity that not only gets them in the classroom sooner, connected with a mentor teacher that we're also able to compensate with these funds, but that clinical teacher that resides with us is actually also, with that grant, able to earn $20,000 for the year that they're a clinical teacher. And then we've also been able to expand the support to the campus by asking them to substitute or tutor. So they're building those connections with the campus, and if that campus has an opening, that would be a great way for them to pursue that opportunity and really remain with our district. But even if not at that campus, we are working very closely with principals to see where we might be able to onboard them in the spring. And then when we have our remaining 7 who will graduate in the spring, onboard them for the 24-25 school year. Under retention, y'all are becoming very familiar with the teacher incentive allotment. I will highlight that a little bit further in the next slide. So I'll go to the next one, which is our Hanover staff retention and attrition analysis. We like to look at data quite frequently, but we realize that with the assistance of a research third party, which is Hanover, they can really help to partner and analyze our data to look at certain characteristics or factors that we can see, why are people leaving the district or why are they staying. So this is looking at experience, credentials, so looking just at the data of the employees that, again, come to us, remain with us, or depart, and then helping us think about, again, data and how we would initiate future things and initiatives. So they will be working with us over the next course of this year to really dig into our data and help to analyze that, and then kind of look over the trends of multiple years to see how our initiatives are helping to, again, retain and recruit our employees. Under support, our first-year teacher academy, this is something that is a 2-year program for teachers that come to us with 0 years. We know that when you're new to the profession, even if you've done student teaching, it can still be something that when you're learning the district and our own practices and just needing that additional support is really important for retention. And also for those going through an alt-cert program, an individual who doesn't get their traditional clinical teaching also needs that additional support. So this is, again, over 2 years where we have these individuals that are getting the support from master teachers, district specialists, focused time during new teacher orientation that happens at the beginning of the year, and just throughout the year, again, that support that we think really helps them with classroom management and just other things like communication with parents. In the second year, those are the individuals that after they've completed their first year of teaching still continue to get support. What we like to highlight is that we had, if I can just share with you some numbers briefly, of those individuals that completed the first year. We had 299 teachers last year that came to us with 0 years, and of that, 244 continued with us in their second year. And we think that is in large part to, again, the support that they get also from their campus, but through this program. So, to be able to say 82% of those are retained to begin their second year, because statistically, we know that teachers leave in the first few years. So we hope that that support will continue to help them remain with us. And then the last under support that I wanted to spend a little time highlighting is the TOEFL exam support. So this is through surveys, and I'll speak a little bit more about some surveys that we've done, but particularly for employees that come to us from out of country. They may have earned certification out of country, but Texas, TEA, requires that they have to go through an exam that's about 4.5 hours. It's 4 components of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And each of those, for some, can be a challenge if you don't have preparation and support, and costly. We have a number of individuals that, as we were seeking input from staff that are with us, already working with students, that want to be a certified teacher, but this is the only thing that's a barrier for them. So we have sought out a third-party person who would be available to us to help support them in any one of those components so that they can be successful, because sometimes it's by very little points, but they get discouraged, and sometimes they're just like, I need to move on to something else, because if I remain an assistant, if that's the current job I have, that's not something I can just continue to do to be able to support my family. So we have at least 7 individuals we're currently working with, but we realize that this is something that if we seek other candidates, we will definitely try to explore that opportunity to help support them. So coming back to the teacher incentive allotment, just want to remind you where we are with it because we have, again, I think I previously said during the compensation planning time, gotten approval of our plan for who we will have as our first group of cohort. So this year, we have been working with our principals and talking about training with our teachers for our data capture year. So what I presented here, just so you see on the slide, is just a reminder of what our teachers voted on. So when we put the information out to them, we got each campus had an ambassador that we presented to, and then we rolled out 2 different surveys to get input from our teachers where they determined they wanted the data that we submitted that would help to determine their designations to be based on 60% of T-tests, which is required that we have to have these 2 components, but they chose for 60% of that to be for their domains 2 and 3 of their T-test evaluation and 40% of student growth. And the student growth measure we're using is MAP, and that is, where we'll have beginning and end of year data that we will use, and then in the next year, year 3, we'll be submitting names for designation. But there's a lot of work ahead, a lot of validation of data, a lot of discussion with principals, but, we are fully committed to ensuring at the end, the outcome that you see is that we'll be able to, again, increase our initiatives with paying our teachers for the hard work that they do with these fundings. So the ranges that you see do show $3,000 to $32,000. For our district, based on our factors, it's more like $28,000 is the max that we last saw for last year, but that could change from year to year. So now we move on to discuss Objective 2.2, which states our district will identify and provide the resources, tools, and training needed for all employees to develop professionally. So here, our key action states create and advertise a clear career path pipeline for employees to explore opportunities for advancement and growth or choose your own pathway. So we really think about our employees in 4 broad categories, and we wanted to be able to make sure that all of our employees knew that we were looking at each role they have and a pathway that we're seeking to define for every employee based on their own personal goals, skills, and knowledge, and what their ultimate desires are within the district so we can retain them, but also help support them professionally in that growth opportunity. So I'm going to also just highlight and speak to a few of these, and then, if there's any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to go into any others further. For paraprofessionals, pathways to teaching or grow your own really comes back to that reference I made to surveys. So we determined the best way to see what kind of support or ambitions that our individuals had about this opportunity was to survey our employees. So we sent out a survey to all of our paraprofessional auxiliary staff members, really knowing it could be open to anybody, and also to substitutes, asking, are you interested in learning more about becoming a certified teacher? And also, what is your current, background? Do you have any college hours? Do you have a bachelor's degree? Are you out of country certified? So we could really explore and understand our population of employees. So with this, when we did the survey, we had 312 responses, so that was very exciting to us. And then we determined from there that we would host in-person sessions because we know that's the easiest way maybe to share information is really to invite different programs to help explain to a candidate what it would require for them to pursue teacher certification through a traditional or alt-cert program. So one of the first sessions we had was with an alternative certification program. At that meeting that was held in November of 2022, we had 101 attend, so that was a great turnout. 40 individuals went to go visit the information that was provided, like a link that went into further detail. And then we had 8 who applied and 2 who were admitted, right after that time frame. And then we have 10 more that were pending applications. So we know there's still further dialogue to have because there might still be just questions that they need more information on. So we're just getting into understanding what we need to do to help support or provide more information to employees. We then hosted a second session in person in April where we at that time invited 2 different alternative certification programs, and also 2 university programs. Again, understanding some people might already have a degree and just need to know an alternative method to get certified. At that time, we had 32 attendees, and we did see interest at both of these for special ed and bilingual. So again, we're happy to hear that we have individuals who are in the classroom today working with our students that are committed and want to continue their own professional growth and opportunities. So we really want to help support that. Also, during those sessions, we, again, think about barriers. What are some of the things, the fears, the concerns that individuals feel that maybe prevent them from going further? So we did invite an outside organization, Ready to Work SA, to attend. And they provide support to people financially, looking at their income, and also just other professional resources, childcare, transportation, interview prep, career planning. So they're just a great resource that we're working to help partner with so that people know. Even when we host a job fair, we're inviting these people to be present because we realize even external candidates coming in might just need the right person to speak to that can help them in their career path. And then just some exciting information I always think to share is, so how many are becoming teachers? So we've had 18 paraprofessionals become teachers for the 23-24 school year. So again, I think all things that are to celebrate. The next one that I want to highlight is actually under the auxiliary. And this is something that's been in place, but it's a great model for another area that we think would be great to consider. And really for Ms. Glosson and her team, over the last several years, they have a cafeteria manager and assistant manager training program that they have to help individuals really know what it is to serve in that role, to grow and develop. And so she had 13 individuals that went through and completed, of which 12 have all been selected for one of those positions, and the one that wasn't was a personal decision. Just, realized that the schedule was a conflict for that person. So again, just great success that we think is a great model for some of our other areas in our trades. And so the one we've mentioned above is we're working and having early conversations with custodial services to think how we could maybe model or adjust for that particular employee group. And then also under auxiliary, the safety specialist. So that is a position, that y'all are familiar with that we have advertised recently, and just recognizing that there's a shortage across the state in police officers. So how did we think to present to y'all something that would be an opportunity? So with our safety specialist, that position really is a pathway for someone who might eventually want to go into law enforcement and be a peace officer. They have the ability to select 2 different work schedules that are maybe flexible to them, 187 days or 210, based on the number of positions we have available. And then because we have a reimbursement for anyone who completes the police academy, it's another incentive that should someone pursue that, then if they come back to us and commit to us for 3 years, we can reimburse them for what they paid to attend the police academy. So again, we think those are great things to highlight, and just to also, I think share with y'all the number of applicants that we have that have applied for this position. So at last, that was presented by Mr. Rand, 164 applicants. So great interest. So we're doing amazing things, I think, to generate opportunities. And some of those applicants include retired, San Antonio Police Department, Fire Department, retired or reserved armed forces personnel, and then retired federal agents. So just great talent in that pool. So I know that they're working towards hiring and selecting those individuals. So we'll continue again to support them in their path. For teachers, the one that I want to speak to, or a few that we want to speak to, is our principal residency program. That was also another grant through TEA that allowed us to focus on our Title I campuses, and individuals would be interested in ultimately becoming a principal. And so we had 4 individuals that went through that the last school year. 2 were successful and then able to apply and are currently with us as assistant principals, and the other 2 are working. So they're still pursuing that path. There's just, again, more steps that they're going through, but it seems that they were able to really walk alongside our principals, really see the operations of the school at different levels. So we're very pleased to be able to share that. The other that relates back to the teacher incentive allotment is the National Board Certified Teacher Cohort. We have mentioned that that is one way that a teacher can earn a designation. If you are a national board certified teacher, you are automatically recognized and then earn the resulting amount. So we had presented to you, and we are happy to say that we have now a cohort of individuals. We partnered with Region 20. They had 15 slots between us and another district, and so we have 8 of those. And it was really exciting to see, just when we put out the survey for interest, that we had 212 of our teachers that were interested. So we gave them kind of general information about what it looks like for this 2-year commitment. So 212 said, I want to know more. Then we had an information meeting where 70 attended. From there, 48 applied, and it was a 13-page application. So we really wanted to make sure they fully understood the commitment that they would be making, because it's a rigorous process. And then out of the 48, I mentioned we had 8 slots, so we selected 3 elementary, 2 middle, and 3 high school. And we wanted to get a good representation of different subject areas that were even outside of those that are already going forward in the first cohort that we have in our plan. So we think this will be a great way to help encourage other teachers. So we are now looking to partner with Region 20 to create another cohort for just NEISD that would run concurrently. And then the last would be able to develop our own in-house cohort that we can with planning and preparation and designing that, along with a facilitator who would lead it. The other thing to highlight with the National Board Certified Teacher is there is the ability for us to become a third-party payer, because when you go through the program, you have to pay a fee, which we can't waive that at $75, but there are all the other things they have to take and pass. And so that can be up to $1,900 that they have to pay, and then later you can submit their name. The district would have to submit their name to get reimbursed. But we've been working with the budget department. As a third-party payer, you can take on the cost for them and then tell them that as long as you can commit to us for 2 years, then that way you're not having to pay for it up front out of pocket. So we're working towards that too, because we don't want that to be a hindrance, especially if we have some teachers that really are fully aware of the commitment and ready to go forward. The other that I want to speak to under teachers is the Head Coach Academy. So this is an opportunity for current coaches at NEISD that want to look at becoming a head coach. And so this has been something in place for 2 years. We've had 35 individuals that have gone through that. And of the 35, 17 were interviewed and 10 were hired as head coaches. Of the 10, 8 are with Northeast. 2, the opportunities were presented outside of Northeast. But again, just thinking about all the levels of opportunity within any role we have in the district is important for us to highlight. Then we have under administrators, our Aspiring Principal Academy and the Bear Prep. I'm going to kind of speak about both of those kind of together, because both of the programs, they're designed to give assistant principals access to best practices and knowledge of a sitting principal. So they meet several times throughout the year, and they are highly successful. Of the Aspiring Principal Academy, 81% have become NEIC principals. And then of the Bear Prep, 52 of the participants in that program have become a principal or a certified central office administrator. So again, a lot of great initiatives within those programs. For Objective 2.3, it states staff will have regular opportunities to provide input that informs decision-making on matters that impact job satisfaction and retention. So here, our key action for 2.3A states create an employee engagement survey, i.e. retention interview. So as we were thinking about this, we thought about the whole employee life cycle. So we wanted to really present to you 3 different ways that we think we have been successful and or will continue to implement or develop ways to engage our employees and get their feedback. So you'll see here convocation, engagement survey, and exit survey, and I want to go a little bit further in depth to all 3. So for 2.3A, the key action, we have identified our beginning of year convocation survey. So over the last several years, a survey has been presented to employees of all the employee categories when they are participating in convocation. A survey that we're asking to seek from them, in the past it's been, what are the benefits or the services that you feel are most important to you? So that has, again, been the focus of prior surveys, and that has really helped, one, to either create benefits or look into different benefits that we can highlight with our employees, or get more word out about them. Some employees just really didn't know some of the things that we have that are available to them as employee benefits, both, not only insurance, so we go beyond thinking about your insurance, but even just other things, again, like our holidays, the different things that we offer at the sports park, or being able to go and get into games free using your badge. So from little to big things, all of those things we sought input and have been highlighting over the last several years. But for this year, at the start of the year, the survey was presented to provide employees an opportunity to choose what are the key topics or decisions that you feel the most passionate about, that you want to have a voice to be able to weigh in on or be a part of those decisions. So that will really be something that now that we've designed and we've administered it, the right parties can analyze it and then begin to bring those voices to the table as decisions are made. Then we think about staff, and why is it that they choose Northeast? What is it that's making them stay? What influences them, again, across all those different employee categories? So I previously mentioned Hanover Research, and so this is another project that we're partnering with them on to gather information from our staff to, again, understand what are those experiences? What is it that we can do to improve? Because we can think we know what it is that they most need or seek, but what is it really? And then drill into that data further. So we're in that design stage. And with Hanover, they give us a lot of resources based on the results of our data, but they also, give us a dashboard. So we have the ability to really drill in, to the information to see what we can do for different employee categories and not think it's a one-size-fits-all. And then with the exit survey, an exit survey is something that we have been doing for years. It's been in place as long as I've been here and prior to that, but it hasn't been anything that we've really looked at, redesigning or changing or thinking about the questions that we present. So that's something that Hanover will also be supporting, thinking about all that data I kind of spoke to you about before. We have the attrition analysis and all the things that maybe will help us tailor this differently, and then help us to think about really why are people leaving, whether it's for retirement or other reasons, what is it that is causing our different employee groups to feel that they have to leave Northeast. So we're in that redesign stage here. So this really then goes nicely into our next key action, which is 2.3B, where each semester we will create feedback forms for targeted populations based on trends from the retention survey. So we will take all of that data and now really drill into in-depth interviews, because we realize you can only get so much through a survey when it's just general data, but really thinking about now the qualitative. So we have the quantitative that we've spoken about previously, but now the qualitative data with face-to-face conversations. But we also know that sometimes it's easier for an employee maybe to speak to someone who's not associated with the district. So Hanover would also be the one helping to conduct these in-depth interviews so that we can get real, true, honest feedback from our employees, and again, have that two-way communication about what it is that we can gain from them to understand what influences them and engages them within our district. So that is the last of my presentation, but I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
It's a great job.
Thank you.
Very thorough. Does anybody have any questions for?
Madam President, I have just one. First off, great, especially excited about the TIA continuing to progress. I know that's going to be a great incentive amongst the many other options you presented. The one question I had when you're talking about the retention piece is, I know Dr. Micah mentioned last year, and every year we have to level the teachers when their class, enrollment's not right. So is part of the data tracked when teachers are displaced, that retention of those teachers like the following year and that? Because obviously when they get hired to a job, they expect to be at a certain campus, but sometimes they get, moved around because of that. And then is that driven by, I don't think it's board policy, but is that like an admin reg or their contract itself that kind of talks about that whole displacement process and how it's done? Because, I know that's a concern when you get kids a month in and all of a sudden now we have to move teachers, new teacher, new, parent connections, all that stuff.
I'm going to try to answer them both.
Yeah, however you can. I know it's a kind of three-part
I'll answer the second part if that's okay first. So we do have administrative regulation that determines when we look at our enrollment, and that's something that we're in process of doing now at the start of every year. We look at actually the student enrollments, looking at particularly elementary, the 22-to-1 ratio, and where we might have to apply for waivers if we go over that. But there are, based on the classroom that's identified, regulations outlining the criteria for identifying the teacher. We do, and more recently have now considered volunteers, because we know that might be something that an individual may realize, this opportunity will allow me to get closer to where I live or where my kids reside. So we do also try, though, in those efforts to think about within the cluster. You know, we know that there are other things that are important to individuals when we're trying to make those decisions. So that answers hopefully that question for you. As far as the data, until probably I speak to Hanover about how we'll be actually collecting and identifying, but I'll be happy to make a point of how would we know if someone's leaving a campus within the district, how do we, look at that data and assess it? So definitely a question that I will inquire with them
Okay,
further.
great. No, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. That's it. Wonderful job.
Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions, comments.
Sure.
Thank you for sharing the information on the Hanover. I think it's important that we give our teachers, employees, a third party to ensure that there's an ease of sharing information. On the engagement survey, is that a one point in time, or is there a continual feedback loop for that?
So the current agreement we have with Hanover is for the course of this year. So at present, we will be looking in the fall, to initiate that engagement survey. I have inquired with them kind of what that follow-on would be if time in our agreement allows to then reassess that data. But really, we're thinking through attrition and, some of the exit survey data, we can maybe see how some of those things come together and all the data as a whole. But at present, it would be in the fall that we are initiating that engagement survey.
Is there an opportunity for employees to submit feedback outside of the engagement survey if it's a one-time survey?
Through a formal process like a website or a link, we don't have in HR something established. I know through other surveys that we have in the district, we are asking questions about how we're doing. Is there anything, like I said, through the convocation survey that is of interest to you that you would like to have a voice or involvement in? So the other things we've spoken about is just, like, I'm going to say, for example, the first year teacher academy. I don't personally see the information, but I know that that's something that they seek feedback from employees, like how did your experience go with that particular program? So I think through initiatives alone, there's that opportunity for some feedback related to engagement.
And do they have that opportunity to provide the feedback through Hanover, or is that direct feedback under those initiatives?
Direct feedback under those initiatives. So separate within the district that we would have different surveys for them to complete.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you.
Item B, bilingual ESL program evaluation. Mr. Jarrett.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I would like to ask Alicia Calderon to come forward for this agenda item.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. So the state requires us to do a presentation on the program evaluation, bilingual ESL program evaluation every year. So that's what I'm here for. I would like to begin with some of the numbers that we continue to grow every year, and as you can see, this year we're at 18.34% of the population. It has to do also with the fact that the district enrollment has gone down and our population goes up, so our numbers keep going up. And when you look at percentages, it's a large, very, very large. And these are the numbers in October of 2022. So we go by the snapshot, which is at the end of October. So the numbers, when we talk about numbers of students enrolled, we're always going to be late one year, basically. So in October of 2022, we have 13,950 total students that were served. And when we talk about students being served, we're talking about the whole pie there, which I'll go into a little bit more detail on each one of those categories. But this is an increase of 1,819 students from 2021. So from October 2021 snapshot to October 2022 snapshot. When we look at the emergent bilinguals in ESL classrooms, those are students that came into our district without the proficiency level in English to be successful in our classrooms. And so we have to service them through either ESL or bilingual programs. And they are in ESL classrooms. That means that their instruction is all in English. We have 5,341 of those students. when we look at emerging bilinguals in dual language classrooms, their primary language is Spanish, and they are being served or serviced with a program that gives them instruction in their native language and in English. And we have 6,428 students. Then we have non-emergent bilinguals. So these are English speakers, that would normally be in general education, that their parents decide to join the dual language program. And so we have two-way classrooms with these kids mixed with our Spanish-speaking students that comprise the dual language program I think just about in all of our schools that have the dual language program, that have the bilingual programs. They have two-way immersion, which is English speakers and Spanish speakers, and we have the one-way immersion, which is just the Spanish speakers. Then we also have M1s to M4s. These are the students who have already been reclassified, so they met the state criteria for reclassification. They're not considered emergent bilinguals yet, or anymore, I'm sorry. But they have to go into a monitor, time from 4 years. So the M1s is the first year after they're reclassified, and M4 is the fourth year when they're reclassified. And the state requires us to continue to monitor them, and if they don't do well, then we have to put them back in the program. But that rarely happens. For the most part, they do very, very well. And the small piece right there, which is, we're very glad that we have just a small piece of the pie, are the denials, which are the parents that do not want their kids in any type of services. So whether it's ESL or bilingual programs. So waivers and exceptions, we file waivers and exceptions every year, and those are the teachers who do not have the certification to be in ESL classrooms with emergent bilinguals. And we had last year, and again, this is also data from last year because we have until the end of October of this year to turn in the data for this year. So we're still collecting that data. But as of last year, we had 86 teachers that we put in the waiver. 19 of them are no longer with any ISE, and we had 13 teachers that passed the test. As of September 8th, we have 62 requests for ESL waivers. So the principals are the ones that request those waivers through us. And then, I put the document together, and then we send it out to TEA. Bilingual exceptions, which is a little bit different, is they don't have the certification for bilingual education, which is a little bit different because they actually have to speak the language to be able to be a bilingual teacher in those contexts. So last year we put 13 exceptions in Arabic, 37 in Vietnamese, 38 in Pashto, and 6 in Spanish. So those are the exceptions. They're a little bit different than the waivers. So we support the teachers by providing professional development so they can study for the test. This is not a test that you can just show up and test. You really have to be prepared, and you have to prepare. It's time consuming. You have to study. The test is comprised of law cases, also strategy, second language acquisition, so the differences between the programs. So it's a lot of studying that they will have to do, to pass any of those tests. So we provide 12 hours of professional development, and it's offered at least 5 times a year. So it's a 2-day training that we do on Saturdays here. And then we also reimburse the teachers for their testing and their certification once they have obtained it. And they have a maximum of 5 times, so they can test up to 5 times until they, if they pass it, they have to pass it in those 5 times. The first data that I'm gonna show you is the one on TELPAS. As you know, TELPAS is the test that is required for all emergent bilinguals. They have to be tested in 4 different languages, 4 language domains, in listening, speaking, reading, and writing in English. And all components of the test are now online, which it was not before. It was, the writing part of it was not online. The writing part of TELPAS was scored by the teachers, and based on a rubric, but as of spring of 2023, the writing was included in the online testing. So that was a change from last year to this year. Another thing that the state did was they changed the target. they always do, right? So the state target for elementary now it's 49. Last year was 36%. So what does that mean? That means that 49% of your students, of your emerging bilinguals, have to make one, it's not 1 year, but it's one level progress. So if they were beginners 1 year, they have to go to intermediate the following year, and then to advanced, and then advanced high. So there's 4 different levels. And so that's what they consider progress. They have to make one level up. But the target before, like I said, was 36% across the board for elementary, for middle, and high. And now for elementary, they put it at 49%. So you can see the scores from last year. The blue is the previous year, and the orange is this year. And the online testing starts in 2nd grade on up. This is for middle school, which we actually did really, really well. If you look at that, for the 44%. So it went down a little bit to 44%. And then the high school is at 34%. So it did really well in high school as well. Now in STAR, I've grouped this by levels. So the left side of the graph is the ESL program, and then the right side is the dual language program. The red bar is us, NEISD. The kind of orange bar is region, the region 20, and then the light blue bar is the state. So this is reading at the elementary level. This is math at the elementary level. And this is science at the elementary level. Now we move on to middle school. This is reading. This is math. This is science. And social studies. Social studies 8th grade it's always been a very difficult test for emerging bilinguals. So if you look at the history of that test, it's always been, actually 39 in ESL is very good because we were like in the teens, 3 or 4 years ago, and 62% is excellent actually for our dual language kids. And that's a course that they take in Spanish and they test in English all the way up to 8th grade. For dual language EOC, 9 through 12, English 1 and English 2, we saw a little decline in English 2 this year. I clustered 1 and 2 together so you can see those graphs. But it was a little decline on English 2 in ESL and in dual language students. Algebra 1 EOC. That's also a course that the students in dual language program received in Spanish, and they tested in English. And biology, the same thing. It was a Spanish test. I'm sorry, a Spanish instruction, English test. And U.S. history, the same thing. Spanish instruction, English testing. So our goals is to increase performance, of course, of emerging bilingual students that the approaches level 3%, meets level 2%, and start EOC in grades 3-12. Increase the TOPAS performance of emerging bilingual students by 1 proficiency level, because that's what the state is wanting, right, to 50% at the elementary level, 45 at the middle school level, and then 40% at the high school level. Our elementary specialists will continue to provide reading academies. As you know, this year we're training 4th and 5th grade teachers, and of course the new teachers that are here, K through 3. Elementary and secondary specialists continue to provide professional learning and strategies that support emerging bilinguals, emphasizing student discourse and student engagement. Continuing the coaching cycles based on teacher needs, classroom observations, and student data. Use MAP assessments, data to identify gaps and create targeted support plans for our students. And use common formative assessments and unit assessments to determine what campuses and specific teachers need support in the different content areas. and then analyze district data in collaboration with all content areas to strategically support the academic growth of EBs in all programs. And I have to say that we do that really, really well. We work really well with with all of curriculum instruction team. We are part of the curriculum instruction team, and we work really well with all the different content areas, assistant directors, and also, working with special education and everything to make sure that we support our teachers. Any questions?
Questions?
Just a comment. I am always so in awe of what you do for our children. It's just amazing the challenges that you face, that these children face, and y'all work together so beautifully to step up and help these children be successful. So I'm very grateful for that. I was curious on the Pashto and Vietnamese both. Those numbers seem to be climbing. Is there something, and I know the Pashto community is more maybe in Northside than here. Do we do any kind of sharing with resources and stuff like that to?
Yes, for the Pashto students, we do have a newcomer program at 2 of our elementary schools and 1 of our middle schools and 1 of our high schools. And so they do go through a special program. At the elementary, they're together in a class, and they can be there only for 2 years. That's what the state tells us, that in a newcomer class, they can only be there for 2 years, and then we have to put them in the mainstream. They need to get used to, also other classes, and so strategically, we move the kids that are ready to move out to from the newcomers class onto those classes. At the middle school and the high school is a little bit different, but they took certain classes, and then also the teacher pushes in with them. We have newcomer teachers that push in with them to go to their regular classes, but we have them clustered for the most part. We do have some populations of Pashto students that are arriving at different elementary schools, but it's not a large population yet. And the thing with the refugee population is that they come all year long. So it's not like they come or they plan to come at the beginning of the school year, which other immigrants may do, right? They come throughout the year. So now we have the Welcome Center that takes care of intaking all of them. It was a grant that we received. And so what they're doing is they're registering our students, and they're providing all those services to the communities and to the parents and to all kinds of services. I mean, we're talking about social services, we're talking about all kinds of things that they do, and then helping them with that transition into our schools. Yeah. For the Vietnamese community, we don't do something like that specific because they're all over the district. If you look at the different schools, they're everywhere. And so we have maybe 1 kid here, 2 kids here, 3 kids over there, but we have them across the district.
Yeah. I think we learned so much during the huge influx of the Somali refugees that we faced challenges that we couldn't even imagine. So I'm sure we learned a lot from that, but we also have seen some great successes from that too. So I have a feeling we've set a pattern for success for these children with what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Any other questions? No.
And kudos to our teachers too, because they're the ones that are in there with our kids every day. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Item C, 2023 Accountability Refresh and Star Redesign Information. Mr. Jarrett.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like Brandy Merriman to come forward for this agenda item. And I'll just say, buckle up.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Micah, members of the board, executive staff, and guests. I'm here today to share a little bit more information about the accountability system this year. I came in June and talked about CCMR and the changes that we were getting ready for, and we had only had performance results for our EOCs. We have since gotten performance results for all of our STAR tests, and they're about to give us our scores. And I want to share with you a couple changes, just so we'll be aware of it. One of the big things is about academic achievement. And as I go through this, please interrupt me, ask questions as we go, because it's just easier for everybody. This is a slide from TEA that he shared with on his road tour about how the redesign of the test, which was the all online and integrating language arts and all those different changes, does not mean the test will be harder, because they They field test their items and they build the test to ensure that it's not any harder. My thought is this true? Because it didn't look like that to me. And the reason I say that is this is the approaches standard. I'm just showing reading right now for 2022 and the 2023. Now, this was what the student needed to get correct in order to meet that standard. So in 2022, they had to have 50% of the test to be considered approaches. And in 2023, they had to have 35% of the test correct to be considered approaches. So they lowered the standards on 22 out of 23 tests for approaches. So to me, that implies the test must be a little bit harder because our kids they lowered the standard in order to keep our performance up. So when they start talking and stouting and praising the TEA and the state as a whole, most of the public doesn't know that the standards were lowered. So the approaches standard for every test, except for 7th grade math, was lowered an average of 11 points. Okay? Meets the same thing. So, and also on masters, meets all 23 tests were lowered. So they were lowered an average of 13% across all tests. So when they give us our scores, our approaches, meets, and masters, and they give us our A through F grade, the performance of our test is about the same as what it's been in the past. But we know, as district leaders and as teachers, we know that the kids didn't do as well as we wanted them to do because they lowered the standards in order to make that happen.
Brandy, may I jump in real quick?
Absolutely. I expect it.
So, yeah, no. I'm surprised you expected it.
Yes, sir.
You know, one of the things that is intriguing to me, so I always say I'm a closet statistician. I go back to all my statistics about reliability and validity, right? Because anybody that understands testing is it reliable? Does it test what it says it's going to do? Or I'm sorry, is it valid? Does it test what it says it's going to do? And is it reliable? Does it keep over time, right? Well, we can't see some data that even parents can now see. So I sat with a parent who showed me the data that they can see on the portal, and it will show like the percentage of students across the state of Texas who got the question right. Okay? A couple of the questions, 1%. 1% of students across the state of Texas got it right. Look, now I'm not a full-on statistician, but folks, that's not a good question. If 1% of our students across the state can get it right, yet that was kept. And so you definitely see
That would be a setup for failure.
that they're monkeying with numbers, right? I mean, they just are. I think I called it many, many years ago voodoo math. You know, they're just playing with it. But I was stunned when I saw that because the parent showed me and said, look at this. What does this mean? And I'm like, well, that means 1% of students across the state of Texas got it right. She goes, well, how can that be a good question? I said, that's a great question to ask TEA. Like, that's where I would direct it because I don't know. I didn't create it. Go ahead, Brandy. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So the 1%, for example, in that particular case, was most likely a multi-point question, and 1% got full credit. So it doesn't mean that others didn't. It's not zero or full credit. Sometimes there's some numbers in between. But that's just to kind of give you some detail about the performance standards. The next thing I want to talk about is growth. So growth has changed because of the change in the test. The TEA has always measured growth with scale scores. And so I'm going to talk to you about what they used to do, and then I want to show you what they did this year and what they're going to be doing moving forward, okay? So this is what they used to do. So in 2021, a third grader would take a test, let's say that's 34 questions long, okay? And they take that 34 questions and they divide it up into 4 categories: did not meet, approaches, meets, and masters, and each one has a cutoff. So depending on how many items the kid got correct, they would fall in one of these buckets, let's say, okay? Then in 4th grade, they would take another test, and they would try to determine if they grew, okay? So each of those had a cutoff, and they would determine if the kid grew. Well, if the kid's at masters and they stay mastered, they give them credit. They say, you know what, you grew, because you can't get any higher than masters. Makes sense? Love it? Okay. So they got a full point for master, stay mastered, they get growth, okay? But for every other kid who's not in the master category, they use their scale scores, okay? These are these imaginary numbers that psychometricians come up with to relate these scale scores together, okay? Now, for TEA, they had to take it in the same test, the same language. They had to take it both in English because the scale scores would not relate. If you took a test in English, you had a scale score that was 4 digits. If you took the test in Spanish, you had a scale score that started with only 3 digits. So they couldn't compare them, okay? Star Alt had to take Star Alt, so they would also get growth, but they had to stay the same test type, okay? So they used these 4-digit scale scores to determine a scale number for each kid or each item. The ones that I care about are the meets level, because that's how they determine growth. Whatever the scale score is for meets last year and the scale score is for meets this year, that difference determines if a student grew. So how far apart those two numbers are from one year to the next, from a lower grade level to an upper grade level, represents growth. So in this case, between 2021 third grade and 2022 fourth grade, that represented 82 points, okay? So if any student increased their scale score at least 82 points, they would get growth, okay? So if a kid would go from a 12 questions correct to 13 questions correct, that was a difference of 82 points, that kid earned growth. So every student had an opportunity to earn growth based on where they are. To me, I felt it was very fair. I don't understand where the numbers come from, but I get it, okay? Most of it, it's about 1 or 2 questions. A kid who went from 9 to 10 questions, 89 points, growth, okay? This kid over here went from 26 items correct to 27 items correct. Did they earn growth? No, they only earned 63 points. So they would have to get another item correct. So if you think about it, if a kid was in third grade and then they learned a whole other year of curriculum and their score went up just a little bit, they've earned another year of growth. They've grown a year is basically what this is telling us, okay? But that kid would get half a point because they're meets. So the state said if you earned 82, you get a full point, but if you stay within that category, you get half a point. So that's how they earned growth. So every kid could earn up to 1 point. This kid right here, this is Mr. Anthony, okay? He had a 21, 1397. If he scored 22 items correct, that would not have been enough. He would only get half a point because he stayed approaches. However, if he got 1 more item correct, he'd get a full point. So that's how they determine growth up until this past year. Yay. Now, this past year, because of the changes in tests, they said they cannot give us the progress measure with the scale score because they have to reset their scales. What's a little bit scary about this is they're going to continue with this method after this year. So let me show you what this method looks like. So that Anthony is now approaches. He's in 4th grade, and he took a 2023 star for 5th grade. Well, instead of using scale scores, they're going to use buckets. They're going to take the did not meet and divide it up into 2 little chunks. They're going to take the approaches, divide it up into 2 little chunks, and they're going to recategorize those 4. So instead of being 4 groups, there are now 6 groups. And the state said all we have to do is get the kid to jump a bucket. I get it. It makes sense. They got to jump a bucket. I didn't realize what was I talking about, though. So if this kid was over here, he's got to jump a bucket. He doesn't got to get 1 more right. He's probably got to get 4 or 5 right to get over there. Okay, but I wasn't sure because, you know, that's all we had was 2022 data. So then we took the 2023 star, and this is the 5th grade test. What looks different about it? A lot longer. When you think about it, that 4th grade test was just over reading. The 5th grade test is over reading, revising, editing, and has a composition essay to it. And now you're going to say, jump buckets. Okay? Good luck. All right? So they did the same thing. They divided it up into different categories. They divided them up into 6 buckets. And the student could now jump buckets. Now, if they're masters, they got to stay masters. So they could do a 36-item test, they could stay masters. They have to do the same thing with 52 points. Most of them probably can, but that's what they have to do. If they fall back to meets, they do not get any growth points. They did give us that if they are meets, they got to stay meets. So that's good. They gave us another one there. But for every other bucket, they've got to jump a bucket to earn points, to earn full credit. Okay, so if a kid is at low approaches, they've got to get to the high approaches. If they stay low approaches, they will give them a half a point. If the kid is at low did not meet, they've got to get to high did not meet to get a full point. So what we got to think about, or what we weren't thinking about, was how close they were to those buckets. If a kid is here, they've got to go there. But if a kid is right next to the line, they've just got to get one question right, more. That's something we weren't prepared for, or at least I didn't recognize it would do so much craziness, because I feel, based on the data that I've seen, that we're going to have some growth scores that are not going to be where we want them to be. And so every kid needs, every teacher, every kid needs to know what is their goal for the next STAR test. Every teacher needs to know which kids are close to the line and which kids have a long ways to go. They're going to help every kid, but if we don't set goals for those kids, they won't be working, they could miss the bucket. This kid right here has got to go all the way to that line. If they've gone from there to there, I would say they grew. This is like Dr. Michael's Leo student he used to talk about, the kid who worked his tail off but didn't quite pass. That is growth, but they will not get any points for growth. Okay, he's got to get over the line. So for Anthony, he's got to get from approaches high to the meets bucket in order to grow. All right, what do you think, guys? So I feel that after this, it's going to be better. The test will be more normalized in the fact that the test they took in 2023 has reading, writing, revising, editing, and a composition, and the test they take in 2024 should be very similar. So I think it will be a little bit, but the thing is the buckets are going to stay. It's not going to be back to the scale scores. They're going to continue to use the buckets to measure growth. So every teacher needs to know where their kids are. Every principal needs to know where their kids are. If you have a bunch of kids that are right next to the line, you have a better chance of getting high scores for growth. Yes, ma'am.
What about the children that have a very difficult time and get test stress?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this is huge. Do they break this up at all? Or do these little boo-boos have to, you know, sit there and do this whole thing in 2 days?
They have to finish it in 1 day.
In 1 day?
Yes, ma'am. They're given one school day.
And there's no extended time. So when the school day ends, the test ends. So even if a child is working through it, the time is up, they're supposed to close the test, and essentially that child's score is submitted at that time.
So let me get this straight. We have 1 day on a test that's substantially larger than what, how much larger is it than what was originally done?
Well, they took off the 2-hour time limit, so they have extended it to give them the full day. Now, it is larger in the fact that it has more points. So this, for example, the 52, 10 points of that is for the essay. So it's not 52 questions. 10 points is for the essay. And so the length of the test, we know ahead of time, it's going to be about 52, 56, 58 questions, 58 points. The number of items varies.
And the test is online for the
So.
most part. I know there's discussion of allowing some paper tests, but right now it's online as well.
And with that, I know Mr. Hilliard and I, and Ms. Grona had to go to a training back in the spring, and we got a preview of the online test. And to your point, Ms. Villarreal, that you've got a certain amount of time to do it, and when you're scrolling through those questions, it's not, I mean, you could have one question that you have to scroll a couple of times to get through the whole page. It doesn't all just show up on one page, so you could potentially miss something. I mean, it's to make these jumps, then also go through that. It's a whole new learning curve.
and the younger kids who, obviously, they're more tech savvy than we grew up with, but it's all online. So, you know, you have a second or third grader who may be hunting and pecking on the keyboard for some of the answers, not all of them, but, you know, writing. So it's a challenge. I think, are you done, Mr. Bride? I don't want to, the comment I made when we had this back, thank you, that's great. I know you got one more slide, I think, but I'm not so concerned about the changes. We know the numbers are going to look probably lower, for lack of a better term. But the real concern is that, are we tracking through the mapping testing, are these kids growing, and that the percentage that meet or exceed, because that's what our goal is in the education code. That's where my focus is that we're seeing the real numbers. This is going to get recalibrated, and I'm sure Dr. Mike and them is already working on some messaging to articulate the changes, but do not overly react to the change itself, but more importantly, stay focused on the core 4 subjects that we're supposed to ensure every student is maximizing their potential. Arbitrary lines that we just have to, other ways, and I know Dr. Mike and the staff are working on ways that we can see that, so that we know, you know, our community, our parents know that their kids are getting the best opportunity to continually improve, not just a number here. Obviously, and the goal is to meet or master.
Absolutely.
So, but I know there's going to be a lot of gnashing of teeth probably when the changes come out, but I think we don't need to overreact. And I think we've talked about this already, that we know it's coming, but very good presentation. So
Yeah,
I'll let you finish your
I think it's very important to say that we are monitoring the growth of every student, that this is one item, one test for most of our 3 through 8 teachers and most of our 3 through 8 students. That's not the ultimate, but we still have to recognize it, and we have to be ready for it. So moving forward, we had a principals meeting on September 7th where we went over this information with our principals. Once again, that's when they told me to come talk to y'all. And then performance level data file, I'm going to provide every principal a list of all their students with their teachers so they can identify which kids, you know, is there one teacher that has a predominant number, a very high number of low did not meet versus high did not meet, so they can know, you know, do they have the support that they need, or, you know, do they need to do a better job of dividing up the classes. There will be a data file released eventually to principals where they can get a preliminary score, and they can start talking about what are we going to say to our community, and making sure that we have our ducks in a row and we'll be able to answer questions about our scores. Results will be released. The A through F scores will be released September 26th, open to the public on September 28th.
Maybe.
Cool.
That's a maybe, because as you all know, we've talked about this. There's currently a lawsuit that's going on. It started out with one attorney or law firm. It has now branched out into a couple of more. So there are folks that are going to TEA to say, you know, bottom line is you never informed us of these changes in the timeline that states in law. And so they're contesting it. It goes, the reason I say it may, because on the 25th of September it gets heard. And that judge may issue a temporary injunction. If that happens, we will not get anything.
Oh, man.
Just letting you know. I mean, and you know, who knows what they're going to rule, right? So we may get our results.
I'm ready. I'm just ready to get going. So if allowed to share this information with principals at that time, we also have a curriculum instruction and assessment meeting with our campus leaders to talk about the data, talk about next steps, come up with plans, and then the campuses have to update their SIPs to reflect their plan based on their results. Do I have any other questions for me?
Any other questions?
No, I just encourage every teacher out there, continue doing what you're doing. Let's focus on the kids' critical learning and actually doing that, and not overreact to the test score and the changes. Let's see how it plays out, but just focus on every child, maximizing their potential, and continue doing what you're doing and developing the real skills that we want them to do so they can continue to grow in all the subject areas. I think we just need to stay focused on the kids and their individual growth and working to help them out and not overreact to this, because it's going to be a lot of news media about it in this test score. I think we just need to be focused on what we're doing and to continue to maximize it.
Yeah, and Mr. Hilliard, unfortunately, you're correct in the sense that there's going to be a lot of media around it and a lot of noise. And again, for teachers that, in my opinion, I've just visited 7 campuses last Friday that are working their tail ends off trying to get, and again, I think the frustrating part, at least for us, is if you knew all of this stuff ahead of time, it gives the adults, i.e. the teachers and the principals, an opportunity to recalibrate and adjust and make some changes. But when you just kind of move along and you don't really know what's all happening, and all of a sudden one day I think when I explained it to the North Chamber last week, a gentleman in the audience said it best. He said, so basically you just played a football game. And you scored touchdowns and field goals, but at the end of the game, you just found out that field goals were actually worth more than touchdowns. I said, that's a pretty good example, actually. That is what we just experienced, right? And so the thing, Mr. Hilliard, that I worry about is because this is all so public, it can be demoralizing to teachers. And so our piece will be, look, this is why the commissioner kept saying, you can't compare one year to the next. But to make such huge swings, and this is just one piece of the swing. We didn't even talk about, this is just domain 2A.
Yes.
We didn't even talk about B. Now we haven't even talked about domain 3, which is another totally redone piece. And so that's the thing. It's just, I'm never against assessing kids. We've done it in schools for forever. We need to make sure we're doing everything we can, but it just would be nice to know the rules ahead of time. Just to give our teachers and our principals an opportunity in which to do the work that they know how to do, which is deliver for kids, instead of, in my opinion, making a big political statement with it, which is what's coming our way.
Anything else? Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Item 11, board business. A, discussion regarding chaplains in schools, and we have people signed up to speak. At this time, the board will receive comments from those individuals who signed up to speak to this specific agenda item. Speakers will be called up to speak in the order in which they appear on the sign-in sheet and to the item they signed up to speak to. Speakers should limit their comments to the specific agenda item for which they signed up. Please remember that this is a business meeting of the board. Any person or groups engaging in outbursts of any kind causing a disruption to the meeting will be warned, and if they persist, will be removed from the meeting. This is to ensure that all speakers have an opportunity to make comments without interruption, and that the board members are able to pay full attention to speakers without any distractions. Ms. Huey.
Number 1.
Good evening. My name is Julie Magadance. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. As a certified school counselor for nearly 20 years and the daughter of an ordained Lutheran pastor who grew up a pastor's kid, I find that I'm occupying a really unique space in the discussion raised by the passage of Senate Bill 763. This bill allows school districts to hire chaplains to provide support, services, and programs for students. Now, I appreciate and honor the work and the skills of chaplains. Chaplains are essential members of our armed services, embedded with soldiers, essential in our medical facilities within hospitals, and these roles are vital in those spaces. They provide services for those who seek support and care through very difficult experiences. And while I truly value the role of chaplains in those contexts, I don't see that public school campuses are a place where this work should be extended. The support, services, and programs that is proposed as the work of these chaplains in the legislation is very vague. There's no context given for what the support will look like or under what circumstances it would be provided. Funding for these positions may come from the same money that districts use to pay for school counselors, for social workers, to provide mental health personnel, behavioral health services, and provide mental health support. These specific supports, services, and programs are the work that my colleagues and I do every day. In order to do this vital work, certified school counselors are trained and hold master's degree level expertise in areas such as counseling theories, career development, human growth and development, group counseling techniques, and crisis intervention. In addition, we maintain teacher certification, we have experience in classrooms, and we are trained and keep current on academic, graduation, and career path requirements for the state of Texas. Beyond our knowledge and skills of supporting students' social, emotional, and academic growth, our teaching certifications also mean that we understand the essential aspects of FERPA and other federal regulations, in addition to state, district, and campus policies and procedures. This legislation, allowing school districts to hire chaplains to provide support, services, and programs to students, does not require that that employee have any specific credential, certification, or training as a chaplain. The omission of such skills and knowledge is concerning to me and is notably different from the job postings in other places where chaplains traditionally work. A quick search of a chaplain job openings in San Antonio shows that all job postings require chaplains to have post-secondary training from accredited theological schools, master's degrees in divinity or theology, and certification with the the Association of Professional Chaplains, or another equivalent certifying body. For these reasons, I ask you to vote against authorizing this practice in Northeast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 2.
President Grona and board members, Dr. Micah, and executive staff and guests. My name is Dawn Silvius. I'm an ordained pastor in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, now retired. As an ordained pastor, one of my roles is to listen to members of my faith community, to comfort and to guide them, and to share my faith with them, to be their chaplain. That's the definition of the word. The word chaplain does not have a secular definition. But I'm not here because I'm an ordained pastor. I'm here because I'm a mother and a grandmother. My children and grandchildren are former and current students in the Northeast Independent School District, and I'm a homeowner in this district. I'm very grateful for the education provided by the thoughtful work of the teachers, staff, executives, and board members of this district. As a homeowner, I'm happy to pay my property taxes to support the many public facilities that we've decided to maintain together, facilities that I and my family benefit from. I think of public parks, public roads and sidewalks, public libraries, and very importantly, public schools. I ask you to vote no, thank you, on the proposal to add chaplains to the hired or volunteer staff in this district's public schools. This is why. In the United States of America, it is understood that religious faith is meaningful when it is freely chosen and freely practiced by individuals, by families, by parents who want to teach faith to their own children. In the United States of America, religious faith is not imposed by public authorities or in public facilities. Public school teachers and counselors are rigorously trained in the practice of teaching and the practice of counseling. In their work, they do not advocate their own religious faith. When parents choose to provide education to their children in a way that includes advocating a religious faith, they may enroll their children in one of the many private schools in the community. These institutions are called private schools because the context of religious faith is understood in the United States of America to be a private, personal, family choice. Chaplaincy functions within a particular religious faith among people who share that faith and explore it together. Chaplaincy is a good thing. But its place is not in the public schools, whose role is to educate and keep safe the children of many diverse faiths and families who are enrolled there. Thank you.
Number 3.
Madam President and members of the board and honored guests, I'm a certified chaplain. I've been a chaplain for
Please state your name for the record.
Oh, Darwin Hewardson?
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Certified chaplain for over 30 years. And what I find interesting about being certified, I wasn't able to get a job working in a hospital, working at a children's home, working at a assisted living until I was certified. And that certification took a year of clinical work, a year of looking at mental health issues, looking at all of those things. And so because of that, I take my certification very seriously, and I would hope that the school systems would understand that certification is a really important part of being a board certified chaplain. Thank you.
Number 4.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Michelle Wilson. Thank you, members of the board, Dr. Mike, executive staff, and guests for allowing me this opportunity to speak. I do serve as a lead counselor at Reagan High School, but I also have 2 children that attend NEISD schools, and tonight I'm speaking to you about the discussion regarding chaplains in schools. I had hoped to hear your thoughts on the ideas before speaking, but the agenda is not allowing for that, so here we go. In the spirit of convergence, I was just shared by Dr. Micah at our convocation this year. I do want to offer out the invitation for any board members, any guests, any community members. I opened my door to talk about the role of the school counselor. I have served on the state board for school counselors for the last 7 years and also had the opportunity to be taught under 2 of the individuals who wrote the Texas model for comprehensive school counseling in collaboration with TEA, and they are also NEISD community members. I truly do open that discussion and examination of the role of the school counselor as it is now with the Texas model in place, and not what it might have been or our perceptions of the role of school counselors based on maybe our previous school experiences, because I promise you it has changed in the last 20 or more years. Secondly, in reading Senate Bill 763, this bill provides the district the opportunity to employ or accept volunteer chaplains to provide restorative justice practices, provide mental health personnel support, provide behavioral health services, providing culturally relevant instruction, and providing suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention, all in which the district would fund, but all while not being certified by the State Board of Educator certification. However, these services named above are all services that are also provided by school counselors on campuses who are certified by SBEC, who have taught for at least 2 years, who have completed a master's degree program, and who have also passed their licensing examination. Not only are school counselors certified to do all of the above, but it is also within our job description. Lastly, before the board makes a decision about potentially hiring chaplains, I would ask you to consider and discuss the answers to the following questions. And again, this is my coming from a seek to understand. As a board, are you currently aware of the job descriptions of the school counselor? Do you know what our competencies are as a school counselor? Are you aware of our 4 component areas that exist within the school counselor job? Are you currently aware of how our time is being spent on each campus with students? Are you currently aware of the needs of our campuses and our communities? Has the board considered other solutions that potentially exist besides employing school chaplains so counselors can spend more time with the students to address the topics above? My ask is this: if you do not have the answers to all of the questions above, would you consider asking the school counseling department in the spirit of convergence and again seeking to understand so that together we can make the best decision for our students, our families, our campuses, and our district? Thank you.
Number 5.
My name is Deborah Parrish, and I thank you for letting me speak. A foremost concern about sending chaplains into schools to fill the role of school counselors is most, if not all, chaplains are a lay representative of a religious tradition. In my opinion, a true member of a particular religion is going to proselytize, whether on purpose or without realizing they are doing so. Different religious clergy may even have specific clothing to show that their religious orientation. Another concern is based on the fact that I recently heard an invocation that ordained clergy of a particular religion gave at a city council meeting within 50 miles of San Antonio. The religion in question is historically known for animal and child sacrifices. Although this is an extreme example of some religious rituals, if I learned that the person who gave that invocation was a school counselor, I would not want any child to be on any campus where that individual served. I promise you, having spent 32 years as a Texas public school teacher, children are extremely sensitive to spiritual things. In my own classroom, I had a second grader make a Ouija board. That's scary to me. If you do choose to start hiring chaplains as school counselors, please define in very great detail the parameters of this position. Also, most chaplains do not have training in mental health counseling. Their training is in spiritual counseling, i.e., if they're a Muslim, they lean toward teachings from the Quran. If they're Christian, they lean toward the Bible, etc. Also, if they are of a particular religious belief system and perceive that they were not hired due to their belief system, you might have a lawsuit on your hands based on religious discrimination. So we'd be opening up a whole new area of lawsuits. Again, if you do choose to take any ISD in this direction, please define your parameters of the position in detail. Thank you.
Number 6.
Good evening, Chairman of the Board, Dr. Micah. I appreciate the time here. My name is Juan Carlos Alonso. I've been a pastor for 25 years. I'm with the International Federation of Chaplains, and I think it's a great idea to bring chaplains into the schools. If it is a money issue for you guys, chaplains are willing to volunteer. And I say, one of the sayings that we've all heard a lot of times is you can't knock it until you try it, right? So I would say bring them in. I want to share with you really quick the potential benefits of having chaplains in the school. Number one, mental and emotional support. Chaplains can provide spiritual guidance for children who desire and emotional and mental support to students, helping them navigate personal challenges, grief, and stress. This can contribute to overall well-being of students. Number two, ethical and moral guidance. Chaplains can help instill values such as compassion, empathy, and ethics in students. They can offer moral compass and guidance in making ethical decisions. Number three, conflict resolution. I know counselors do that, but like the school has a nurse, right? It would be great that sometimes when I was a teacher, so sometimes the counselors couldn't handle some of the students, and they would pull me out and say, Mr. Alonso, can you please speak? And there was plenty of times there were suicide attempts and things like that that they couldn't handle in the way that you can. Some of the people can reach children in a different way, right? You just have to know how to do it, how to handle it. Conflict resolutions. Chaplains can mediate conflicts and promote peaceful resolutions. They can serve as neutral figures who help resolve disputes among students. Crisis response. In times of crisis or tragedy, when Katrina came, when COVID came, all these things, we're out there helping. We're out there ministering, if we can say, giving people hope. It can provide immediate support and comfort to students, staff, and families affected. Number five, community engagement. Chaplains can facilitate community engagement and service and projects, encouraging students to give back to the community. Having a chaplain available on campus is not meant to replace the school counselors. Having a chaplain on campus is an additional support to our school counselors. The bottom line is that any of us that have attended school knows that we don't learn about how to have a good person in math class, science class, or art, but incorporating chaplains in our schools will overall help to create responsible citizens, which is aligned with the Northeast ISD mission statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 7.
Good evening. My name's Dr. Jerry Junkie. I'm a professor at the University of Texas at San Antonio. I've been training school counselors for about 42 years. I'm here tonight. I live in NEISD. I've served at Reagan on committees for Brenda Hilton and for Mr. Boyd. Hilton, I got the wrong name. Sorry about that. I can look it on up here. Brenda Shelton, my mistake. And also Barry Lanford at Lopez. I'm familiar with NEISD. NEISD, I'm proud of this district. And I'm so glad to see so many people here tonight. This is awesome in so many ways. Just want to touch on a couple points. 2,700 graduate school hours. 2,700 graduate school hours. That's what our school counselors are trained. They have 2,700 master's hours related to diagnosis related to ADHD, autism, spectrum issues related to school counseling. They have a course related to suicide and grief, and it's specifically trained for elementary, middle, and high school kids. You've got all sorts of things. They receive 700 hours of school clinical internship. And that actually, they come to your schools and NEISDs and are trained by your school counselors how to do school counseling work. What I'm saying is, school counselors are specifically taught how to do school counseling. Matter of fact, 99.7% of the school counselors in my program at UTSA have already been teaching for 2 years. I'm familiar with St. Mary's program and with Texas A&M San Antonio's program, all great programs. I would venture to say they have the same experience. Our school teachers who want to become school counselors are specifically trained for this. It's not a global training. They have specific training on how to do school counseling. Therefore, I would really plead with you to think about what ramifications it has to hire somebody trained, has the graduate hours, has the clinical experience, and they do the work for you. I thank you so much for hearing me tonight.
Thank you.
Number 8.
Good evening, and board. My name is Aurora Alonso, and I'm a pastor from the Promised Land Church here in San Antonio. And you know, GPS, God's perfect guidance system. You know, I see that you all are very concerned, and I'm concerned. But I see that you all do a lot of work here for the children. We're concerned about the children here. And you provide all that the children need to grow and to be educated in different areas of their life so they can be good people, right? Good citizens, right? And, you know, we're concerned with the needs of the children. How they grow up, how they live at home, tells a lot about their families, right? So the children need not only secular education, they have a spirit that needs to be nourished. And I care about children, and I have ministered in prisons and juvenile and camps for little girls from 12 on up. And I have ministered some that have killed themselves, and they say that there's no love in their home, no love, and no understanding. And at school, there's a lot of different things that come into the school. And how many of you have seen that movie, long time ago. I don't know how many of you believe in God or believe in the devil. We live in a world, light and darkness. Okay, I seen it with my eyes. I've experienced it, and I know what I'm telling you. When you haven't experienced it, you don't know you won't know what I'm talking about. But I've seen a kid play with a witchy board. And if you go to stores down here in San Antonio, in Ross or something, like those stores, they're selling different things from the darkness that the kids can get and play with. Witchy board is an occult. I saw a kid get.
I'm sorry, that's your time.
My time's up already?
Yes, sorry.
I was just starting.
Thank you.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so Mrs. Landry and Mr. Hilliard, you had requested that this be on the agenda, so I'm going to let you all start the discussion.
All right, well, and thank you all for coming and sharing your input. It's truly appreciated. My thoughts on this, I know that this is an opportunity for the schools, and I think there's a lot of concern about whether or not this would replace counselors. But as Dr. Micah mentioned in convocation, about letting the community and letting the parents in to see the good things. I think this is a great opportunity to bring some spiritual guidance into the schools and ask for chaplains as volunteers to come in and not take over counseling positions, but be there as a resource for children who are interested and might want that type of nourishment.
Yeah, so the big reason I think it's important is because by law that just went into effect September 1st, within 6 months, we have to make a decision. So I wanted to get the conversation started early. It's just a discussion tonight, so we can get the community input and be thoughtful about it, because it is another resource for those who may want it. We're not forcing it. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of strong opinions in this whole discussion matter, but I think it was just important to get the conversation started so we can be deliberate and thoughtful as we go through this process, because there are a lot of things to consider if we're going to say yes to this. What would it look like, volunteer or not, what requirements, et cetera. So that was the primary reason I thought it was important for us as a board to get it here, so that we can have time to deliberately discuss this and make a decision when we have to by law within 6 months to doing that. And I will say from personal experience in the military, chaplains not only deployed but in garrison or at our squadron, those who chose to do it found good comfort, but it was always voluntary. Obviously, you get into a different dynamic here at the schools, but still it's another resource when we talk about kids' overall well-being, mental health, all those things. Everybody has different aspects of their life that drive who they are, so it's definitely worth considering. And then if we're going to consider it, we need to be understanding the pieces we would do to make sure we understand very clear roles and responsibility if we go down that path. But that was the primary reason I wanted to make sure we started the discussion with the community early.
I have something. I was wondering, would this be something that the shack might be interested in maybe having a discussion over? Would that fall under the shack purview?
I don't know that Shaq, does this have to go to Shaq? Mr. Lopez is here for guidance.
Good evening, members of the board. It wouldn't have to go to Shaq, but it's certainly something that the board has the ability to ask Shaq to weigh in on. So that's something that the board could do.
I think it would be great to get the input from Shaq, have the parents and Shaq discuss it, weigh it, and then bring it back to the board, you know, their thoughts, because this is their children. So I don't know what you guys think about it.
I think that's an option worth pursuing.
So, I guess you could ask their opinion if they think that's, but I think that, you know, what we've got to do is determine whether or not we're going to set a policy that says we will either employ them or allow them to volunteer. And that policy needs to be, we need to take a record vote on whether we're going to do that policy.
Well, is that us developing the policy? I guess I'm unclear what the law states because it's
The
very
law-
vague as far as what it is. So my understanding would be that we're discussing it tonight. We've gotten some public input. More public input is not bad. I don't know if the shack is the right. I mean, that would be parents as well, that they could also provide input. I mean, individually if they wanted to.
Here's what the law says. Each Board of Trustees of a school district and each governing body of an open enrollment charter school shall take a record vote not later than 6 months after the effective date of this act on whether to adopt a policy authorizing every campus of the district or school to hire a chaplain under sections 33.002 and 48.115 Education Code as added by this act.
So my interpretation of that is that we take a vote at some point to decide whether we want to create a policy.
Right.
That's my understanding too, and then subsequently do a policy if we chose to go that path at some point thereafter, but we have to take a vote, either yay or nay, on just if we're going to do it, I think, is my understanding.
Because then what it says is, a school district may employ a chaplain instead of a school counselor to perform the duties required of a school counselor under this title. A chaplain employed under this subsection is not required to be certified by the State Board for Educator Certification.
Yeah, and I, you know, there's a lot to kind of parse through with this and developing a policy, because I think there's a lot of controls that would have to be put in place. I think I have some concerns about the certifications and even as the pay as well, and even as volunteers, you know, how do we hold those volunteers to the same standard that we hold other volunteers as far as access to children, and other students. And then do we have to give equal access? I think there was a good point brought up by one of the speakers about potential discrimination, and there's potential opening ourselves up to, you know, problems that we don't necessarily have at this point. So I'm, you know, I do have some concerns, and with it being under the safety and security measure, we already have money that's tight. Maybe I'm misinterpreting the law, but you know, we have money tight that's for security officers, for physical improvements to the campuses, to cameras, and this would be one more thing that our $10 per student, our $15,000 per campus would have to go towards if they were to be paid. And I'm not suggesting that's a done deal or not. So I think through a lot of those items, including some of the things we heard tonight from our counseling community, I just have some concerns about what the particulars would be on something like this, if we even go down the path of trying to create a policy for this, because I think it would have to have a lot of controls and rails on it to be successful. And at that point, are we hamstringing the people that we think we're bringing in to help, which I think could be a problem.
And tonight, you know, this is not an action item, this is just discussion.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
just as a
So we don't
reminder.
have to decide on it
Oh, no,
right
no,
now.
we can't.
I was just wondering, good, okay, because I really want, I can see where this could go, and my brain has a wide scope of where this could go. I think it would be amazing if the shack could weigh in on it and give us their input, because I don't know even how we could begin to even write a policy, because there again, like one of the ladies, you know, said that, you know, about that appalling thing, the person who gave the invocation, who was of a particular persuasion, and I just see people with picket signs out in front of our schools, you know, this sort of thing.
Well, because
I'm
if you're going to
concerned.
open it up and there's no definition of what a chaplain is, so you're going to have a
Just
wide
goes
range of people
huge.
that.
It goes
And
huge.
then you've got, parents. I mean, what if that person talks to the student and the parent didn't want them to talk to this? I mean, I think you've got in my opinion, a wide range of
So, Ms. Villarreal,
potential concerns.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But I guess putting it to Shaq, I'm not 100% sure what
I'm just
that
trying to
would
get
necessarily do.
input. I'm just trying to get, do people want this? Do they not want this? This is, I don't know, and if we put a huge amount of rails on it, would we be accused of being discriminatory against a particular group? What, where is our liability? Where does the legal ramifications come in?
Mr. Lopez, that's why you're here.
That's a big question. So certainly, the law did not contain a definition of chaplain. So certainly, any policy would need to begin with a definition of what a chaplain would be, and you all would be really responsible for designing what that would look like. What does a chaplain mean? The other thing is, obviously, the duties of a school counselor are meant to be focused on the things that school counselors do. And so to that extent, I mean, it really should be sort of a non-denominational focus to avoid issues of potential discrimination. The other problem is, I mean, if you, let's say, were to create a policy that would allow for the hiring and paying of chaplains as employees, then if at some point somebody applies for a position who may be of a particular religious persuasion and doesn't get the position because they believe could be some religious persuasion or religious belief that they have that led to them not getting a position, then you potentially run into lawsuits challenging for religious discrimination under Title VII, because there could be, a failure to hire type of claim associated with it. So it really would require, I think, a lot of massaging of any policy that you all were to create in that regard to avoid those types of entanglements. Because the goal is to stay out of the courthouse.
Yes.
That is the goal, yes.
How long do we have? We have 6 months, so March 1st.
Oh,
So,
did you have some? Go ahead. All right, thanks. First of all, I think we had some really great input tonight, and I'd really like to thank everyone that spoke. I think, Ms. Magadance, and I also appreciate the fact that you sent us an email with your points, because I really like that you come from that double perspective of a counselor and a PK. I think that's really important. Reverend Silvius gave us a perfect definition of a chaplain, and I loved that care that you put into that. I think probably one of the things that struck me so strongly is our professor's point of 2,700 hours. If we have someone who is a chaplain, who thinks they're a chaplain, who wants to be a chaplain, who whatever, I would want them to put in that 2,700 hours that our counselors have already done, and that they are the ones that are truly qualified to meet some of the crises and the good things that happen with our children. We did hear from a certified chaplain, a board-certified chaplain, who I'm going to quote her, in Texas, many have different ideas of what it means to be a chaplain. Many who have no training call themselves chaplains. However well-meaning they may be, they often believe that it is their responsibility as members of a particular faith to proselytize and promote their own faith to make disciples of them. The law specifies no training for chaplains, which is alarming to us. We have set a high standard for our teachers. We want our teachers to be certified, and if they're not, we have to inform the parents that classroom teacher is not certified. Where do we stand when it comes to a chaplain who's not certified to do anything in our schools? If they are, that's great. It's like, okay, I'll use Mr. Hilliard's example as a pilot. You're a pilot, and you are highly certified in what you do. I happen to know a pilot, too. Now, he's really great on a Cessna. How would you feel about him as your co-pilot flying your mega jet, and he is not certified to fly your type of aircraft. I see immense danger in this situation. On the other hand, there is nothing to stop a parent, a guardian, or anyone to have a chaplain visit with their child outside of the school setting. Chaplains, their hearts are volunteerism. I mean, that is a huge part of who they are. If they volunteer to help, it does not need to be in the school setting. If a parent feels that their child needs guidance or counseling from a chaplain, they are more than welcome to do that. It doesn't have to be in the school setting. I don't want to put an extra burden on counselors who've already got so much on their plate. They're going to be having to mentor these people or having to guide these people or having to watch what's going on or not going on. That load is already, I want their focus on our children. I think that's the most important part is our children. And I have massive respect for people who step up into chaplaincy and are working in our prisons and in our hospitals. And if they want to mentor to our children, go be a watchdog, all those other things that you can do. And in your chaplaincy role, I don't think it needs to be on our school campuses.
Does anybody else have anything to say?
I still would like to just send it to the shack. And
Okay,
just
well,
let them,
We
let
can't
them.
take action on anything right now.
Okay, I know, but I just keep that, I
Okay.
think it would be great, send it to the shack, let them do their magic and all that and figure it out.
Okay.
If they think that that would be something that they would, and then we have Mr. Lopez who can help us make sure that we can do the verbiage and if that is what they want.
Okay. Anything else on this?
Yeah, I think if, I don't know if we go that route or not, but I think for current parents of students in our district, if they've got information that they would like to provide to us, I mean, they know how to reach out to us, email addresses.
Yeah, email.
They can find us, so.
Board
I think-
at neisd.net.
Yeah.
Gets all of us.
And all of our individual emails are on the website, and so I think, as a NEISD parent, I think those are the ones that are going to immediately get affected by this, and so I think those are some of the voices we would probably want to hear from as well, whichever side that's on, so.
Okay. Item 12, new business for possible board action. A, board policy 1, possible action regarding board policy update 121 FFI local.
Thank you, President Grona. Tyler Smith, Executive Director for Pupil Personnel Services, will address this action item.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. So I come back to you with the revisions that were made to FFI local that were included in update 121, and I'll go through each of the revisions as we noted from the last board meeting. So page 1, under minimum standards, the request was include a cross-reference to the administrative procedures indicated by the update itself. So the revision that we have done is that we included CFFI regulation that was added to the FFI local. Additionally, we included the we have an administrative regulation, FFIR, and that has a cross-reference to the TEA minimum standards for bullying prevention. On page 2, we have the monitoring. It previously noted periodic monitoring, and that was a word that you asked to be stricken, so we removed periodic. Revised the statement that was super confusing. That was the ups and downs and backs and forths. So we did revise that statement, and then we included the request to receive the report of bullying counts at the end of the fall and spring semesters that was requested during the last meeting. So the revision statement, as it reads, superintendent shall monitor the reported count of bullying incidents and evaluate the available data to determine if there's a relationship between the number of reported incidences and campus culture. And then the addition of the superintendent shall provide the board with a report of counts of bullying incidents after the fall and spring semesters. Okay. On page 2, notice of report. The request was revise the statement to include a specific time frame for the parent of alleged bully to be notified, include language from the Student Code of Conduct absent extenuating circumstances. We have added that language as well. And then we added in the before 10 district business days after the incident is reported. On page 3, notice to parents, the request to revise the statement to include a specific timeline for parents of the victim and alleged bullying to be notified when the bullying is confirmed. And then revision is, if an incident of bullying is confirmed, the principal or designee shall promptly notify the parents of the victim and the student who engaged in the bullying no later than 2 district business days. And then page 4, access to policy and procedures. The request was to include FFI local in the student handbook. That has already been done for the 23-24 school year. And then ensure FFI local is included in the employee handbook, and that was already present in the employee notification packet that goes out from HR. And with that, I welcome any questions, and I ask for approval for FFI local.
Any questions for Mr. Shoesmith?
Matter of fact, when I reread this, I was concerned, under the principal or designee shall also notify the parent and the student alleged to have engaged in the conduct before 10-day district business days. Doesn't that seem a little bit excessive if you have an issue, to wait 10 days or actually give yourself that much time? I was kind of concerned about that.
So the victim's parents are going to be notified within 3 days. And then the 10 days is for what we've added for the alleged bullying, the person who's actually engaged in the bullying. Before it was, within a reasonable amount of time. Typically we have, well, not typically, we have 10 days to conduct the bully investigation. Why we usually have that long period of time, and we notify the alleged bully's parents maybe much longer after the victim's parents, is because the investigation is going on.
Understood. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. And back here, let me see. If the incident of bullying is confirmed, the principal or designee shall promptly notify the parents of the victim and the student who engaged in bullying no later than 2 district business days. Does that also give you a chance to do some investigation? Because I know that if I had a parent, or I'm a parent that had a kid that was bullied, and I would have been enraged.
I think this is if it's been confirmed.
This
If
is
it's been
after the
just
investigation.
This is after the
confirmed.
investigation.
Okay, so that's what I was getting to, if, because I wouldn't want a parent to feel like they were being left out of the loop in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, so this is once the investigation is complete and it's been confirmed, then it's within 2 days,
Okay.
right?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, good, all right,
Any other
You just
questions?
wanted a timeline, it just previously said promptly, so.
okay.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve FFI local that was included in Update 121 with the changes attached?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you. Item 2, possible action regarding Board Policy Update 121 CLB Local. And this is Dr. Mitchell.
Yes, Madam President, Board, Dr. Mike, Executive Staff, and guests. At the last board meeting, there were some questions about some of the verbiage in the update, and it stated that including residential property primarily used as student housing. Since we don't have that, we're just recommending that we just strike that out of the update.
Okay, is everybody good with that? All right, so do I have a motion to approve CLB Local included in Update 121 with the revisions?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item B, Instruction and Campus Administration. 1, possible action regarding contract agreement for speech and debate documentary. Mr. Jimenez.
President Grona, I'd like Julie Shore to address this action item.
Good evening. One of our seniors at Churchill, a speech student, was selected last year by a production company named Oration Nation to be featured in a documentary focused on the work and dedication of students in speech competitions. This documentary that they're wanting to do is called 1,000 Words. It features 5 high school students from across the nation that they would be featuring in this. They will be competing in original oration, which is a speech that's given that usually contains 1,000 words. Oration Nation started filming in June at the National Speech and Debate Association National Tournament in Phoenix, Arizona. To fully support our Churchill student in this opportunity, Oration Nation's schedule would include 5 visits to the campus for this school year to capture different stages of development, as well as filming events and competitions at various tournaments. The campus visits would include practices inside the classroom and interviews with the campus principal, the coach, and the student. Oration Nation is creating this documentary for educational purposes to be shown at the local and national speech and debate conferences, but additionally, they have a goal of pitching this project to various streaming distributors as early as either a single feature or a series. The theme of this project is to focus on the importance of speech and expression by our youth. So Fine Arts is requesting that you consider approving the Oration Nation contract so filming can take place on the Churchill campus. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms.
I just want to say, as the mom of 2 students, graduates now, that did speech and debate, I love this so much. The positive attention that this brings to this group is incredible. We look at all the time for positive things to highlight, and Ms. Villarreal and I both saw a film recently about our special needs students. This is another piece to that highlights a group that I have huge respect for, because I spent those many years being a debate mom and watching them, the work and the hours that they put into it. They take my breath away with the devotion and the dedication they have to what they're doing, and their brilliance too, by the way. So I think it's just a great star for any ISD on our crown.
Thank you.
I think it's amazing, but here's the practical part. Are the people that are going to be on our campuses background checked?
They always have to be, yes, ma'am. So before we let them come onto our campus, we do a full background check. And so usually what's going to happen when they come is they will have a film crew of 2 people. They will have the producer. That's usually the team that comes. And we always know ahead of time who they are before they come onto one of our campuses.
Will anybody be accompanying them through this, or are they just going to be wandering around on their own?
No, ma'am. So our teacher at Churchill's name is Preston Stolte. He is the point of contact for the campus, and he is to be present when they are on campus filming.
Okay. Ooh, this sounds like fun.
I had one question, a great concept. Under the exclusivity on page 17 of our board package, if I'm reading this right, it says we can't attach ourselves to anything similar to this, but there's no time frame. I know Ms. Chancellor and them do a lot of the short snaps, but if we have other kids in speech and debate that are doing this, are we limited from doing that? Because the way this is written, it's saying we can't do anything in this creative space, and we lose control as a board and a district to, if we have other students that are doing, the similar things at different places. Is that what this contract's saying? Because that's how I'm reading it, and I may be wrong, but it's under the exclusivity section.
Yes, sir, I understand. So I don't have an answer for you, and I'm happy to call first thing in the morning to see if we need to add to the contract that they sent to give a deadline or a date span. I'm happy to do that if needed.
Because I just think I don't want to limit the opportunities, because we have so many kids doing great things, and we have something else that's similar space, and they're like, oh, you can't do it because it cuts on ours. And that's just the concern, that we don't lose our ability to tell our story that we do all the time.
Yes, sir, I understand.
Okay, and we have, the other thing I saw, we have no, under the rights granted section, we have 0 creative control, 0 say. We lose the narrative. They can, once they film in our schools, they can do what they want with the storyline. I'm assuming it's going to be positive, but they can do whatever they want with it. We have 0 ability to say, no, you're presenting this in a bad light.
So the discussion that I had with the producer was that this is a positive documentary featuring one of our students out of 5 across the nation. It is supposed to be a positive light. We do have the opportunity to see it before it is put out for distribution.
Okay, no, I mean, I assume it is. I just, the what-if question, if we don't ask now, we later, I just don't want us to go, oops, and the unlikely event, I seriously doubt it is. It sounds like doing great stuff, and it sounds like a unique opportunity, being one of 5 in the nation. So, okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, do I have a motion to approve Oration Nation LLC to be allowed to film on the Churchill campus and promote the material to a streaming service?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. It's a Really cool idea. Item C, business services. 1, possible action regarding defeasance and calling for redemption certain currently outstanding obligations. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Mike, executive staff, and guests. Tonight, we bring a resolution for you, or approval, to be able to pay off some outstanding debt in the future to try to save the district some money. And we use that with the excess collections that we get from our INS rate.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about this? All right, do I have a motion to approve or adopt the resolution approving the defeasance of certain outstanding obligations of the Northeast Independent School District?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 2, possible action regarding tax rate designee. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President. Property tax code states that you have to designate a tax rate designee, and we bring to you my name tonight. So that way I can do the next item.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to approve or to adopt the resolution appointing the district's chief financial officer as the designated officer responsible for calculating and reporting the no new revenue tax rate and the voter approval tax rate as determined by state law?
So moved. Oh,
Thank you. I'll give one to Mr. Byer and and then Ms. Villarreal the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 3, possible action regarding no new revenue and voter approved tax rates. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President. Now that I'm the tax rate designee, I bring to you tonight forms that we had to fill out, and we worked with Mo Casey to determine it's really the old effective tax rate and the tax rate that you can go over, and that's all that is. It's just
Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? All right. Do I have a motion to accept the tax rate computations for tax year 2023 for the Northeast Independent School District? Further, and do I have a motion to recommend the Board of Trustees append the 2023-2024 adopted budget with the calculation worksheets?
That's one motion.
Yeah, it's one motion, but furthermore. Hello?
So moved. Couldn't get my mic on.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. I've confused myself now. Item 4, possible action regarding adoption of 2023-2024 tax rates.
yes, Madam President. We bring to you tonight the adoption, hopefully, of our tax rate, our M&O, be going down to 7.105, and our INS rate staying at 30 cents. It's a reduction of almost 17 cents from prior year.
17?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. Yeah. Anybody have any questions about this?
So we don't come to you about our appraisals?
No, sir.
Can you get Bear County to drop, can you get Bear County appraisals to drop their piece
That
of
would
it?
be Bear Appraisal, yes, sir.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt the attached ordinance levying the maintenance and operations and interest in sinking taxes for the 2023-2024 year?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 5, possible action regarding TEA login teal. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President. Hopefully the third time's the charm. We brought to you the first time, and we had T's instead of teal. So we brought it to you, I think it was back in July, and we had it under consent. TA said it's a no-go. You have to actually say her name in the regular action item.
Okay.
Even though it was listed in our consent, TA says no, they weren't going to accept it, so that's why we had to bring it back as an action item. If you
So
can,
that I say her name.
yes, ma'am. If you can just
Okay.
read that, authorize Stephanie A.
Okay. A.
Tucker.
Tucker.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It is a long motion. Does anybody have questions about this before I go? Okay. Do I have a motion to authorize Stephanie A. Tucker, Northeast ISD Senior PEMS Manager, to act as the superintendent designee for approving staff requests, also referred to as submitting requests to TEA for access to one or more TEA web applications accessed through TEAL? The authorization is valid for the period starting October 1, 2023 to September 30, 2024.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Item D, consent. 1, business services. A, budget amendment number 1. B, supplemental appraisal rule. C, interlocal agreement. D, 50,000 purchases. 2, operations. A, Richard A. Middleton Executive Center Passenger Elevators Modernization Project Bid Award Approval. B, professional service contracts, construction contracts, and related contract amendments supporting the 2015 bond, M&O, and ESSER 3 program funds design and construction requirements. 3, minutes from August 2023. 4, end of consent. Do I have a board member?
May we just, Dr. Mitchell, do you want to clarify something?
Sure. Madam President, on D2A for the Ramick Elevator Modernization, I have an error on, I think it's page 50 on the consent page. It says the funding source is M&O Capital Improvement Program, but it should be 2015 Bond Contingency Fund.
Okay. Yeah, just fix the elevator. Do I have a board member wishing to pull an item from consent?
Madam President, can I pull D1C, which is the interlocal, and D1D, the 50K purchases, please?
D1C, and what else?
D1D, the 50,000 purchases.
Okay, anybody else have anything they want to pull? All right, do I have a motion to approve consent without D1C and D1D?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Okay, D1C.
I see Mr. Ray coming up again. Just following up on the questions. First off, thank y'all for putting in Northeast and UT Health, not second, third. So definitely more clear. The question is there a list of approved vendors, the third-party vendors? Do we know who they are, or that is just really what UT Health Services does?
So it all goes through UT Health Science
Okay.
Center. That's their vendor pool.
Okay.
I don't know if it's published out there. We would probably have to contact them if we're looking for a specific vendor.
No, I just, the other question I asked last time was, you said you look at, are there proper controls in place from the audit's compliance oversight that we, the district, can see, the services we're getting, that we have that proper stuff in place? Because I asked and you said you'd review it just to make sure that we know that we're protecting the district from liability, and also make sure that the appropriate information is contained from these third-party vendors and stuff.
Right. So it all depends on the terms and conditions that were negotiated during that bidding process. We ask the entities that we're piggybacking off of for their contract documentation, and then it's our responsibility to look at what terms and conditions and pricing was negotiated. And once we enter an agreement or we decide to go ahead and use a third-party vendor, then it's on us to negotiate with that vendor those terms and conditions if we don't really agree with those things.
Okay, so we retain
have an
control through the
opportunity.
negotiation process on the backside.
Correct.
And you don't have to necessarily use that vendor if y'all can't come. Okay.
Right.
That's the control I was talking about. The last piece, the executed date on the back still showing 24 July. Will that need to be changed or not?
No, because we didn't really make any changes to any of the wording in
Okay,
here.
except for you just put Northeast in there and UT Health versus just second party, third party.
No, they're still in there. I mean, it's still the same thing.
Did we, I thought that,
Section 3 and Section 4 still
Four.
refer to first purchasing party and second purchasing party. We didn't really identify which party, and that's because when you have an interlocal agreement, they can be interchangeable. It
Okay.
depends on who's the originating entity, who made the
so
RFP or that
UT
bid.
Health could request us for services? Okay. And it ties in the second piece, for the 50K purchase. That answers my question, unless anyone has an interlocal question. That's what I wanted to see was the compliance. But we have 240,000 for UT Health. I'm assuming that's tied directly to this interlocal?
Correct.
Is that correct? Now, is that good for the entire year? Is that covering just like an admin fee, or is this just expected expenditure ballpark? We're on to 1D. Let's-
Okay, so we need to,
They're tied together, but I need to, since she's up here,
we'll
do
approve
sep-
them separately, but
Okay,
I'm gonna let them.
just so they don't have to come back up. That's the only reason I was trying to be efficient.
Keep going.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
Certainly. So the $240,000 is going to cover 3.7 FTEs on the UT Health Science Center to be able to support our mental health services for the mental health grant. It is an extension of the T-Chat services that are currently offered, and so that's going to cover their side. So they do all the hiring for those individuals, and that's the fee that we pay them. That's an annual basis.
Okay, so this is an annual fee, and it's basically for the personnel they're going to hire to
Yes, sir.
administer this. This is separate from anything else we may purchase in the interlocal. That would cost, or
That's
separate.
absolutely separate. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
that's what I needed to know for that. That's great. And I've got one other question for 1D, but do we want to do 1C first, real quick?
Sure. Do I have a motion to approve D1C?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. All right, 1D.
The last one, for the Reagan Retention Pond cleaning, that increased 45% from the June that we approved. So that's a significant increase in 3 months. Is
The
there more to the
increase
story?
is, the increase is just for the retention pond. What you did before, what you approved before, was just for general landscaping. Because we have to remain in compliance with SAW, the retention ponds have to be cleaned out. So this is an extra service that is going to be provided.
So sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm taking
You
this
know,
one,
this-
'cause
yeah,
I
this
was
is your-
about to- I was about to pull this one.
Okay,
So
no, you asked. Go ahead.
So the 300 though is just for a yearly.
Correct.
Maintenance contract, and then the 148,
Yeah.
It's specifically for the
Just for
retention pond at Reagan.
because there's like 3 of
Do-
them up there? Or-
Mhm.
Okay, so it's for all 3 of them?
Correct.
Okay.
How big are they?
It's like an acre and a half worth of land between all 3 of them, or maybe
Gotcha.
more. at
But
least a
what's
couple acres.
involved in the cleaning of this?
Okay.
Because, I mean, for $500,000, I mean, I'll get out there with a,
No, it's,
Well,
it's
the-
100,
yeah,
it's 148,000.
Yeah,
well, still.
Yeah.
the state has a lot of requirements for cleaning, making sure that
So
they
a scrub
actually
brush
can-
and weed whacker won't work?
Yeah, they remove everything, drain the bed, replace any bad gravel, replace any bad material, and includes the removal of all hazardous material and waste, including disposal fees.
Okay. So this 148,000 is just for the retention pond. The 330 is the annual landscaping.
Correct.
Services. Okay, because I just tied it to that one and just, okay, thank you. That's all my questions, unless anyone else has questions.
Okay.
I had one other question related to the graduation ceremonies, and we had I guess, additional 44,000 related to graduations, and was curious if that, I know we have to enter into an agreement with the Alamo Dome, so I don't know if that was because of the Alamo Dome or something on our end that we.
It's the Alamo Dome.
Okay. Did
yeah.
something change after we signed
So,
an agreement, or?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
The previous year, it was 201,000, and that's what the number was that carried over for like the expected price. When we came to graduation this year, we got a bill, and it was much higher than what we expected. They didn't provide us an estimate prior to the actual ceremony. They had done that prior to the year prior.
Okay.
But they didn't provide it for us this year. And so we were hit with a larger bill. There was $240,000. So knowing that, moving for the estimation for this current year, that's why I adjusted the dollar amount.
Okay. And so have
hopefully-
we asked them for $5 parking this coming year?
That's not even included in that either. That's the surprising thing. It's just what we thought was going to be a reduction in the overall fee, they increased the cleaning fee. And so that bumped our number up quite a bit. Every district was surprised by the same amount.
Interesting.
Yeah, across the board, so.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question. Okay, on this Bear County American Rescue Plan Act grant, okay, for $2,631,904, is there a gotcha clause at the very end? Because I know we're tying this together with the UT Health Science Center.
Which item is this?
This one is the federal awards, but I'm tying it with this because apparently we're all tied together on this, and I was just concerned.
No, that's on a separate.
Separate
That's a
thing. I
separate
was just,
item.
I thought we were tying all this together.
No,
No?
that's a separate item.
That'll be the next item, I
Okay,
think.
sorry. Okay, I'll hold my thought.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve D1D?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Item 13, reports. A, interim financial and management reports. B, awarded bid report. C, federal grants report. D, donations report, E, open records request report. Is this where you had a question?
Yes, I was concerned because anything coming through the federal government, I really have a worry about it. Is there any way that we can look at the verbiage on this to make sure that there's no gotcha clause at the end of this? Let's say we get through with the $2,631,904, and then all of a sudden they say there's strings attached. Oh, by the way, now you have to do this. Is there anything like that attached to this?
So this is kind of a pass-through grant. Essentially, the grant is awarded directly to the city. The city creates the parameters that they operate in, and so we basically partner with the city to offer mental health support. So this does tie back to what your earlier point was, is it's all tied together. It allows us the flexibility to create a program that supports mental health across the district, and so we're able to use these dollars over time. There's no real interaction between us and the feds, I guess, if you will.
See, because I'm getting a lot of pushback on this. The parents are terrified of this mental health bill. I'm wondering, is there any way that we can allay the fears of our parents? Because they really don't want us messing with their kids.
Sure. And
essentially.
Ms. Villarreal, when it comes to those types of things, just understand through this grant, the parent has to give permission. It's not something we're doing minus the parent.
Okay,
The other thing, just to waylay some of your fears, is anytime we get these agreements, we always sit with our attorney and let them review it to make certain that there's nothing in there that may be problematic for the school district, because we never want to get into that. A lot of times they don't like it because he makes a lot of changes, but it's always with the school district's best interest at heart in protecting what it is that we want or don't want to do.
And we set specific parameters for this. In other words, you can't, this is your box, you will remain in this box and we won't get out of this box?
Yes, we're crystal clear, and everything, to Dr. Micah's point, was drafted and written in a way that is parents opt in. It is not something that we force children into. And so it's complete control sits in the parents' hands, not ours.
And Mr. Jerry, this is the conversation we had last, I guess, in the summer when y'all were getting the grant. This is going to run through the SHAC because it's mental health piece, right? This
Any
is the piece.
any curriculum points that come through the grant or speakers will go through the SHAC, because that does allow for a child to be in direct contact with the speaker.
Okay, for
Yes,
that
sir.
enhancement. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on reports? Item 14, discussion possible action regarding board members' request for items to be placed on a future agenda and our request for reports from the administration.
Madam President, can I request a report on, this is follow-up to the Hidden Forest Turf Project, and maybe more just an email from Dr. Micah, close the loop on that because it's been a little while.
Mr. Hilliard, we're still working on that
Okay.
with them.
Well,
I just want you to know, Deb has been reaching out to the office. I'll give it to you right.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Can
then.
I do it right now?
Yeah, you're all okay with that. It's
Or-
been a while.
No. So the secretary says no, so I will send you an email tomorrow.
Okay,
Yeah,
no, that's
it's
fine.
not agenda, so I'll send y'all an email with an update. It's still a work in progress. Okay.
Okay, I have two things I would like to request. Madam President, I move to have an agenda item to have a discussion with possible action on the Confucius Institute at ISA.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Is there a Confucius Institute?
I found, or
Well, we can
We
have
have to vote
discussion,
first.
though, right?
We can have discussion first, can't we?
Should be able to.
To request, or no?
Not for an agenda item.
Is this something that just could be a discussion between you and Dr. Micah, maybe? Does it need to be agendized?
we found it on this, right here.
No, I'm just asking, could
Yeah.
it be just a
Okay.
discussion, you and Dr. Micah, maybe?
Well, this is a discussion that I actually had about a year ago, and, but yet I'm seeing it show up in this documentation right
What is
here.
that document?
What is this?
This is the, the interim financials, right here. If you, this is what was supplied in our board packet. This is
Okay.
something we're in discussion with right now. It showed up as a line item on page, line item number 47, Confucius Classroom at ISA, $119,190. life-to-date actual, 89,687. And budget remaining, 29,503.
Well, since that's our report, can't we talk about that?
Because this is what came in our board packet.
I want to say, go ahead, Susie.
This is part of a grant. I don't have a ton of details in the top of my brain at the end of the day. But it's a very old grant. And so we're just trying to wind it down. So it's my understanding.
But what strings are attached to this grant? And can I see the documentation on this grant?
Yeah, I can't speak to them off the top of my head at this moment, but it's
We
pretty
can
old.
send that to you, Miss May.
Okay, because this is disturbing. All right, so,
So we don't need to have an action item for that because this was in those reports, so they can send you the information, right?
okay, that's good.
Right.
Then we'll have an action item on it. The second thing I would like to do, Madam President, I move to place the SMD2 seat on the upcoming ballot and let the voters decide who they wish to represent on this board.
That's already been voted.
I know,
I'm
I'm
going to
just.
put that on a future agenda item?
Yes, I'm just giving this another opportunity because I'm very concerned. I really want our voters to have a voice. That District 2, I really want the voters to decide this issue.
Okay, well, we can place it on a future agenda because that's what this item is. Do I have a second?
Seconded, but it'll be past the date of our next meeting.
I'm sorry, what was the second point? What was that?
I'll second it, but it's, time-wise, it's not gonna work out because our next meeting's not till after the last day.
Well, then I remove that request.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Item 15, adjournment, and the time is 9:25. Thank you all for being here.